And we will move now.
All right, let's get started. If I can get my volume up in my headphones enough. By golly. I think so. All right. Let's just operate as if. Here we go. What? One more second. Sorry. You know what? I didn't want you to hear that. That was just for the special people. That's all you need to know, okay? What I said then was censored by the establishment, and they are just afraid that I, as the duly designated ambassador of the deep state, would share some stuff I wasn't supposed to share. I don't know. I accidentally forgot to put the mute thing because I was doing other stuff. Anyways, I'm the drop state. No, I'm the deep state. Not only will I hit bottom, but I'll scrape the shit out of the sides. Listen, there's a lot to cover today because you could tell that besides all the kabuki theater of getting like Trump's people through, And the best way of doing that, they think, is just to literally flood the zone so that everybody's like, I've got proof, I don't know. Because they're just stacking them. They just want them all in there, and they want them in as quickly as possible. And by the way, hi, chat room. We bring you guys in so you can play a part in this. And thank you for promising not to tell. Some people are good at reading my lips. It's true. Cat heard the whole thing, and he's shocked. He should be. I'm just saying. Cover it like a down cover. When do they vote? It's different on each person. There are multiple rounds. In some cases, there are not going to be multiple rounds on the SecDef, on Hegseth, because quite frankly, he's too much of a puss and couldn't take it. I think Pam Bondi gets 2 rounds. Marco Rubio's getting 2 rounds. But for some reason, Pete Hegseth is such a fucking wimp that they can't go at him twice because the questioning is too much for them. Okay. So he only gets, it's very curious to me that of all the like macho roles in the government, the SecDef is the one who's like, I don't need 2 rounds of questioning. It hurts my fifis. Whereas everybody else is doing it. It's, yeah. Anyways, warrior fucking mentality, meme city or whatever. Yes, sorry, Hal. Just saw the headline. Trump names Sylvester Stallone, Mel Gibson, and John Voight as special ambassadors to troubled Hollywood. They'll bring the lost business back. Yeah, I responded to that earlier, you know, because these guys will be responsible for taking Hollywood back to its heyday where the leading men looked like shaved scrotums and women got pushed down on a lot of couches. Yeah, I don't know. I was talking about like... LA's got like a $1.7 trillion economy. They're talking out of their ass. And obviously, I don't know, Avengers and all the Marvel movies, Expendables. What's your budgetary over-under on those? You know, not that I don't like them, but it's just, and John Voight, get the fuck out of here. He's a lunatic. I appreciate him. I'm sure he'll be showing up at a clipboard at Warner Brothers going, I have some notes. Yeah, who cares? That said, there's one thing I want to draw attention to in these hearings that I'm seeing a lot of, and I would call it tit switching. I labeled the show in such a way using numbers because I'm concerned that the title wouldn't make it through whatever kind of lame digital censorship would exist in this. But that tit switching itself is when somebody was relying, let's say, on Russian money to back their bullshit, and now they're switching over to China. And we see a bunch of that in how people are asking questions about things at these hearings where they used to run interference for Putin, now they're running interference for China, or vice versa. And one of the few people who does it masterfully, tit switches in mid-conversation, even in his preamble to a question, is man with dead squirrel on his head who got punched by neighbor, Rand Paul. So I take you now to the part of the hearing for Marco Rubio, who I will refer to as the least of our worries, however sound the rest of those worries may be. Dumb phrase, I don't know, I think it works. Tit switching is exactly what these guys are doing. They're on the teat of these particular countries, and they're just going to which one they perceive as more full than the other. So in this particular, you'll see what I mean in this instance.
On to Senator Paul. Senator Rubio, congratulations on your nomination. One of the questions that I've asked over time to secretaries of state as well as ambassadors and others from the State Department is, can you name for me instances where sanctions have changed behavior for the better? And I'm not going to ask you that question now. I'm going to wait till you come back to ask you. There's a preview of what I'll ask you the next time. But the reason I bring that...
Yeah, he's asking this question and then he goes ahead and asks it. He's a fucking moron. But here's the thing. This is his premise. That, can you name me once where sanctions have changed behavior on the part of a country that we are sanctioning? Now, I will put aside for a section, if I may, to return to it later, where sanctions on one country impact the behavior of other people who might want to try the same shit. Yes? Right? There are other countries that are like, fuck, they really came down on them with both feet. I'd rather not lose my financial position in the world or my ability to trade or whatever. So I'm not going to fuck around in that particular. I'm not going to give nuclear secrets to some country, even if I have them, because the blowback might suck. Right? Okay.
That up is that I think hopefully people think of sanctions as a way of trying to modulate behavior. You want better behavior out of a country. A country's doing something you don't like. You'd like them to change their behavior for better through sanctions. And I think it rarely works. And I think we pile more on. Now,
okay. You're going to hear that premise a lot from Republicans over the next little bit as they try to help Russia and China peeling back the sanctions that are put on them. Now, I'd like to say for the record that they absolutely do help. They absolutely do matter, and they absolutely do change behavior. There's no question about this. But beyond that, here's a good idea. Maybe the West and the U.S. dollar, if it's meant to mean anything in the world, should not be used as a reward structure or a blind support structure for people who trade in human beings, guns, and drugs. That if a kleptocracy like Russia or Iran or any of these other countries want to trade with other countries, they just can't use our system that we set up, right? That just having a fucking standard that doesn't involve fucking slavery and saying, you know what, we're going to put a sanction on Xinjiang cotton because you're using slave labor for it. And if you could say, well, that won't change China's behavior, it has. And secondly, fuck them. Again, if you can't change that person's behavior, it doesn't mean you have to stay in business with them. Why in the world would we reward them with our trade at all if they're engaging in human trafficking or slavery for a product we can get elsewhere? Fuck you. And again, Rand Paul, like Ron Paul, are complete Darwinist Ayn Randians. They believe that all charity is a sign of mental illness, that being magnanimous or supportive of your fellow human beings, if it doesn't buy you something, is a waste of fucking time. It is dog eat fucking dog out there, and there is no moral floor. Morality is a distraction for Rand Paul and Ron Paul and that crowd. Period. End of fucking story. His argument here is, why are we sanctioning cotton coming out of China because it comes from slave labor when it's not going to stop them from using slave labor, and it would mean cheaper shirts for us? And to him, I would say, fuck you. Just flat out. Fuck you for being pro-slavery. That's just so we know whose baseline is where.
Some would say, well, sanctions are just to punish them, and we just want to, Russia invaded Ukraine, we're just punishing them. And so
that also works. Also, punishing them doesn't mean, what's the punishment? We're not punishing them by bombing them. We're not punishing them by rounding up Russian citizens and putting them in concentration camps and shit like that. The punishment comes from, you don't get a piece of our pie, fuck you. If we set up this system, the United States sets up this system through, for international trade and through the fucking Panama Canal and the Suez Canal and all these connected things, and having bases all over the world, making sure that ships, no matter where they're from or where they're going, with rare exception, can get there unmolested so that we can have open trade across the world. And we're going to do that. And then you decide all of a sudden that you're going to take advantage of that and use it to send rape squads into fucking Bucha. And we're supposed to go, well, what are you going to do? It's a standard is a standard is a standard. Jesus Christ.
As punishment, they kind of work. I don't think they're deterring Russia's behavior or changing it. But really, sanctions can have effect in a couple of ways. I think the threat of a sanction, the same way the threat of a tariff, can have an effect on behavior.
Not if you don't do them. Fuck, this guy's dumb. If sanctions don't work and sanctions don't have value because they don't change behavior, whatever, so you decide not to do them, then what the fuck does threatening them do? Right? And what are you going to do? Threaten them with something you don't think works and you don't agree to use? Whatever.
But once placed, I think a sanction or a tariff only has effect on someone's behavior if you remove it. Now, you mentioned earlier a little bit about...
Or the possibility of moving it if they change their behavior. That's the whole fucking... God damn, this dude is fucking dumb.
Discussing ways to unwind some of the sanctions ultimately on Russia. People mentioned, well, we never want to let them sell energy again. No, you have to let people enter back into the world. That's how you're going to get behavioral changes. And
well, then, so sanctions do, fuck me. So sanctions do work because they're leverage if you undo them. If they don't work, what does that country care if you have them or you don't? God damn. Think, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say to you, and I appreciate you guys being here. Chat room, you are obviously the sparklers, the best and the brightest out there. And I think watching the show shows taste and breeding on your part. But I trust that even the most easily distracted of you, even those of you that only, half follow certain elements of the fucking news, if you were given a half hour and you're like, hey, you've got to ask questions about sanctions to a potential Secretary of State, you could fucking, between Googling it and just mulling it over in your fucking head for 10 minutes, come up with a more cohesive argument than this. No question. Rando. We could spin a fucking dial. And even the most trollish don't give a fucks in the fucking chat room would go, oh, yeah, I've got some questions that I think would be sound. Damn.
Really will have to be part of the peace. If there is going to be a negotiated peace, the one aspect that makes us part of that war are all the sanctions. And so it really should be offered up of removing that and going back to normalcy when we can find a resolution to the war.
Well, sorry, what would be the resolution to the war that would go back to normalcy? Think about how fucking stupid that is as a sentence. Think about flattening out the last 2.5 years of what's happened in Ukraine into, we're going to have to unwind these things so we can go back at the resolution to a sense of normalcy. Jesus Christ. If this dude was a Democrat and they were talking about pathological diplomatic speak, he's talking about Ukraine in this instance, but he means all of them. Okay, let's be abundantly clear, too. Rand Paul is one of these forever wars motherfuckers. One of these guys who throws around, we got to end these forever wars and forever wars. Let me be extremely clear with the forever wars fucking crowd and the forever wars rhetoric. Okay? Scoot in, because this is really important. Forever wars is their way of saying, depending on which side of the coin you're on, fuck the Palestinians or fuck the Jews. That's what it means. There are no other forever wars. We're not forever at war with fucking Japan. We're in South Korea, but we're not forever at war. We have a base there, but North Korea we're not in a constant war with these motherfuckers. And half of what we do with our base there is protect shipping lanes from fucking pirates as they go down through the South China Seas. It's not a forever war. Vietnam was not a forever war. Afghanistan, even at 20 years, is fucking over. Iraq is over. We may have a base there, but we're not at war. The war on terror, which is really what I think most of us meant in terms of when that phrase started popping up, it was about the war on terror. That you're never going to end terrorism, so it's a forever war. Well, so is the war on drugs. So is the war on poverty. These are forever wars because you can't declare war on them and actually win that war. It doesn't happen. It's a constant struggle. It's gardening, not warfare. But when these assholes talk about forever wars, and I mean this on the far left crowd, the fucking assholes stomping around shitting on Israel on college campuses, all the way over to Roseanne Barr and her fucking good Jews versus bad Jews bullshit that she throws around. Let me explain something to you. They both want the same fucking thing. They're sick of us having to protect the Palestinians while deciding Israel has a right to exist, or vice versa. They either want from the river to the sea for the Israelis, or they want and for Jews in particular, or they want from the river to the sea for the Palestinians. But they don't want an end to the war where these people live together. They want one side, finish it, fuck them, and they think that if we stop backing Israel, or we stop giving aid and comfort and I don't know, resources to the Palestinians, that somebody will just win and we can just fucking walk away from it. That's what that means. Anybody, and primarily, they know that the strength of the Israelis over time, including the Arab Israelis, because they're not all just Jews in there, remember, they know that they're strong enough that anybody who's saying we need to end these forever wars means we need to get out of Netanyahu's way and let him kill all the Palestinians. Shut the fuck up. Ukraine's not a forever war. Russia's imperialism would be a forever war. We're not involved with that. And if you want to end that forever war, you protect Ukraine, you allow it to get into NATO, and you draw a fucking line. And if they want to dick around in their sandbox around Tajikistan and stuff like that, then they can work that part of it out. And we can decide at some point whether or not those people want to be free of that enough to request help from the rest of the world to protect them against Russia, or move in with them and join whatever it is, whatever Russia calls itself going forward. But the forever war crowd can go fuck themselves, because this is what they're talking about. We're not in forever wars. The Japanese don't speak English by force. Neither do the fucking Germans. We're not in the forever war business. I find this so lazy and painful to listen to. And the worst part about it is it sounds good. That's why this asshole, has some like across the aisle support. You'll see dickheads like Chunk Uger and fucking Jimmy Dore kind of scoop up after him. Just follow this asshole like a horse in a parade, just using their lower jaw to scoop his turds up into their face because they like that phrase. It's meaningless. It has zero meaning to any of the real conflicts in the world. And what it does is, for this asshole's purposes, is it serves the idea that we should let the aggressor, whoever it is, win. Life is a zero-sum game, and if some country has built up its nukes and its army and all that kind of shit, they have the absolute right to bulldoze over anybody in their fucking path. That's what that means. It doesn't mean what you want it to mean. That's what it means. Being against forever wars doesn't mean, can we finally have peace at all? It is code signaling by these kind of assholes, period. And if you use it and you're like, that's not how I mean it, find another phrase, because I got to tell you, it is completely hijacked by this shit. That's what it means. All they know is that if you use that same language, they can count on you to hijack your empathy. Forever wars is meaningless. If you have a specific conflict, because I'll tell you why, this is exactly why we're not helping in Sudan more. That's why Sudan doesn't even fucking chart right now. Because we were involved when it was Darfur, when South Sudan split from Sudan. But not anymore, man. We can't do it because we can't be involved in these forever wars. You mean the Pentagon is bleeding America dry? No. It's an enormous part of our budget, but largely, again, it's about protecting shipping lanes. I got to tell you, like, this habitual language drives me fucking crazy, because it is fucking, if the Sudanese were white, if the Sudanese were Jews, then people would use it. There's almost a distinct, like the parallels between territory and ethnic groups and control points between Israelis and Palestinians in that area is almost exactly overlaid in the Sudanese world, but they're black and none of them are Jews. That's what that is. But it would be a forever war.
I'll give you an example of where I think often the State Department loses its sight of its mission. Instead of
Fuck me.
being the Department of Diplomacy, which I think it's supposed to be, it becomes just an extension of the Department of War and muscle, and we show how strong we are through the State Department.
We don't have a Department of War and muscle. I'm just saying for the record, because if we did, Donald Trump would, would put Hulk Hogan in charge of them.
But really, when bellicose statements come from other parts of the government, I see the State Department as the one that shows up and tries to still have a conversation. In the past, I think because of remarks, you had been banned from travel to China. The ambassador that's been nominated also has had statements that make us question whether or not he'll be received in China if he becomes the ambassador to China. When Blinken and Yellen went to China recently,
also, by the way, he's making the point that Trump has put people in, including Rubio, who are so anti-China that we'll never be able to equalize relationships. I got news for you. Trump is not going to put anybody forward who isn't a hard ass on China ever. And if he did, they'd never get passed. Period.
They decided, and I'm not arguing with the goal. The goal was to get China not to sell dual-use parts to Russia to use in the war against Ukraine. A noble goal. I share the goal. But they got to China and they shamed them in public and called them names and told them they're terrible people and they should quit doing it. I would argue that there's another way to try to get behind.
Yeah, that's not how it went. That, by the way, no. The State Department didn't show up and call the Chinese terrible people to their fucking face and try to, it wasn't even close to this. Devon says, Pentagon has not passed an audit in 7 years. They literally burned through our tax dollars out. No, they don't. It's an oversimplification. I hear it way too often. It's a right-wing talking point as well. No. The fact that they have a standard audit, even within the people that we have in the Senate and the House, is the questionable part. Are they trustworthy enough to know where stuff is? If you've got somebody like Trump and his ilk and the maggots and the Freedom Caucus who will openly tell our enemies where our spies are and where our gear is parked and yammer about our technology over chocolate cake at fucking Mar-a-Lago. You wouldn't pass an audit either if somebody was trying to embezzle from you in the room every time you spoke. That's really what was going on here. It's
behavioral changes.
Doesn't mean there can't be changes, and it doesn't mean that there's not fraud and that kind of stuff. That's a different thing entirely.
I would argue that the opposite of sanctions is trade. And so we have a lot of...
The opposite of sanctions is trade. Right, so we should just take Chinese cotton because trade, they'll like us better. China will like us better if we use slave cotton, because America has we have a history with slave cotton and we're fine with it, right? We didn't, fight a civil war over the idea.
Sanctions on China. If I'd been the one going to China with a mission, I would have said to China very quietly, we may not be able to undo everything, but perhaps we could undo one bit of sanctions that will enhance your economy by X amount if you'll agree to quit selling dual-use parts to Russia.
And the assumption is, A, that they didn't do that, and B, you're a fucking idiot? Which one? Here's the thing. Maybe one. Which one? Yeah, for toupees? What, maggot hats? What?
I think that's just it's a different look on things.
Hold on. Somebody just wrote in here, the Chinese are happy people. They pay less for everything from corn to higher education. Faye, that is an absurdity. I have been to China. I spent the better part of 2 years there. And it is not a communist country either. It is controlled by a communist party, but it is not a communist country. Does anybody know? This is a good question. Hold on, chat room. This is a good question. Yeah, it's TikTok propaganda, absolutely. How many years of school do Chinese people get for free? Public education. How many years? We get 12 in the United States. How many do they get? Five, zero, zero, zero. They get 8. They pay $7.90 a year for a law school. Yeah, in a legal system where you have to prove you're innocent. They get 8. You go to 8th grade. Anything after 8th grade, you pay for it. What do you think healthcare is like? Do they have free healthcare? Do they have like Canadian? Do they have a British style national health service? Is that what you think? Does anybody think that? Anybody believe that? Anybody believe that China has a national health service like England does or Canada? They do not. Right. Nope. Can you, if you make money, can you invest it in anything but real estate? Nope. Can you be arrested for criticizing government leaders on social media? Anybody? No, they're healthier than we are? No, they're not. They are absolutely not. Hal, please explain why it sounded like President Ford claiming Poland is not communist. What? Sounded like President Ford claiming. Because I've been there. I mean, communism with it would seem to be a national baseline standard where everybody works together, right? Where do you see that in China at all? For real. The government owns 51% of any business in the country. That was a joke? Okay, thanks, Corley. There are no communist countries and there never were. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the idea is that the idea was socialism is a gateway to communism. That's what Stalin believed, and that you had to get there first. Marx believed that you had to you basically let the rest of the world innovate, and then you would just take it. And then you would build on that innovation. And once the world industrialized to a certain point, you could build a communist utopia on that because all the work will have been done. And China kind of took that and ran with it as a theory, more so than the Soviet Union did. But the problem was there was so much graft and lack of forward thinking that they destroyed 70% of their arable land. They toxified their air and water. It's just, I don't know, like it's for debate with Jay. Explain. Sorry, board members of ByteDance are members of the CCP government. Yeah, they couldn't be if they weren't allowed. I mean, they couldn't be if they weren't members. They wouldn't be allowed. You need a balance of capitalism and some socialism. I would argue we need a true balance of capitalism and democratic taxation. Hal, I heard you once say that China doesn't have true Chinese food, but Taiwan does. Well, if you want the real culture now, it's not that you can't find Chinese food there, but all the culture is in Taiwan now. Everything else is kind of especially if you're led around by the government and shown things as a foreigner or a dignitary or something like that. They'll put on a show for you, but it's largely bullshit. Anyways, again, I don't know where. It's like when fucking Richard Wolff talks about how China pulled people out of poverty. No, they didn't. If you make if you were making under $400 a month for a family of 4 in China, you were below the poverty line. At $4.01, you're no longer in poverty. There are no grades of it. It's just like a fucking switch. That dollar took you from poor to not poor. That's absurd. So again, I don't know where people get this stuff from. And especially people who've never been there, I guess, social media or whatever. And like I've covered it so much on here. The gutter grease, Jesus. Yeah, people can go look up, the ghost cities, gutter grease. There are people actually who believe that China doesn't have homelessness, that they don't have any mental illness, or that they take care of their mentally ill. What else do they believe? That there are no mass murders there, or no crime. And Trump even thinks they don't have a drug problem. Sorry, but if you have a country with anywhere near that population, you're going to have all of those things. And even if you try your hardest, and this goes to this whole sanction thing that we're talking about with this fuckwad, that if you have enough of anything, you're going to have a fail rate of 10%, 8% if you're lucky, 20% if you don't give a fuck. Virgin boy piss, boiled spring eggs, yum. No, I'm not eating piss eggs or ash eggs either. Has Trump ever heard of opium? Right, exactly. They have quick trials. Yeah, exactly. How many people live in China? My number, I would say less than 800 million, probably closer to 600 million. The 1.4 billion is bullshit, just saying, for the record. Having been there multiple times in the biggest cities and in the most populous areas, walking around, there's no fucking way they have anywhere near the number. Billions do not live in China. Not even a billion. India has over 1 billion people. China, not so much.
And I don't think we're getting it.
Sorry, hold on. Groove Dragon says, United States healthcare costs twice as much as any other country, but we are ranked 48 in life expectancy. Hold on. Well, it's a good thing to draw on. It's an excellent point to bring up. 1 second. Let me go back to chat. Life expectancy. Let's see. According to the World Bank, we're 49th in the world, not 48. And our life expectancy is 78.5 years. It's expected to raise to 80 by 2050. People in 2023 are estimated to live 78.4. Let's see. And here's the other ones. Hold on. This is the map of above 80 years. Canada is kicking everybody's ass. So is Australia. And I don't believe that with the spiders at all. That said, yeah. So here's a map. Life expectancy. Above 80 years, that deep green that you see. Obviously, with high birth rates comes high death rates. Nigeria is one of the fastest growing populations, and yet their life expectancy is 54. Those often go hand in hand. Your birth rate and death rate. The lower the death rate, the higher the birth rate, because people replace people quickly and they have lots of kids and not everybody survives. So the children dying lowers the age range. So even if you have people living into their 70s, that overall life expectancy is dropped by the people who die under the age of 10 years old, for example. Okay. So Here's hold on. Here's South Korea. Okay, I agree. Go away. Here's Australia. Australia, 84 years is their life expectancy. Way over here in New Zealand, 82 years. Good old Canada at 82 years. Pretty great. Here's France with 83. Netherlands with 82. Spain, these are all northern countries. There's Sweden with 83. America is at 79.463. By the way, racial homogeny will give you better numbers most of the time. But let's see, Algeria is doing all right with 76. Brazil's got 76. Down here in Chile, it's 81. It's all that beachfront living. That'll drag you out. Meanwhile, here's China, 78. 7808 17. It's a year lower than ours. About half a year less than ours. China overall. Now, down here, they have Taiwan's is 80. That's higher. And then Hong Kong was down here. Where is it? There's Thailand. Where's the little... I guess they don't... Vietnam is at 7. There's China, 78. Vietnam's at 74. So Hong Kong, the reason is that China, Hong Kong is... Hong Kong has a higher one at 85, but mainland drops that off. So Monaco has the highest one. In Europe, San Marino, then Japan and China. And this is the Hong Kong area, autonomous region, not China mainland. Japan, the Republic of Korea, that would be South Korea. St. Bartholomew in North America, which is way up over here. Where is it? This guy, where are you going? St. Bartholomew, and it's too small to even. There's Iceland, and Greenland is at 70. It's lower than us, but it's cold up there. Hold on. I don't know. They don't separate it out. St. Bartholomew is down the islands. Maybe there's Cuba at 78, Haiti at 65, Dominican Republic at 73. Not good. Mexico. All right. Anyways, French Polynesia, Andorra, Switzerland at 84, Australia, Italy, Singapore. Most of these are in the 85 to 83 zone. That'd be the top places all the way to Iceland. Then you get to Martinique. These are the 82s. Then you get down to Puerto Rico, Cyprus, Slovenia. America doesn't get credit for Puerto Rico, even though it's part of North America. The UK at 81, and then we're way down here. Hold on one second. There's Peru and Colombia. And did I scroll past it? I did. United States is up here. We're above the Falklands and Estonia and Saudi Arabia and Northern Mariana Islands and Poland and Croatia and Slovakia and Uruguay, and we're higher than Cuba and Kosovo and Turks and Caicos and Bosnia Herzegovina. And we're above China and Jordan and Lebanon and Peru and Colombia and Iran and Antigua and Bartona and Sri Lanka and Ecuador and Argentina and North Macedonia and the British Virgin Islands and Guam. And although I think that should be part of our territory, so maybe that eats into our number while taking it away. Hungary, which is being run by a very smart, tough guy, who has very, whatever. St. Helena, Serbia. Let's see, way down here. Who's dragging ass down here? Nigeria is at the bottom. Chad, Central African Republic, Somalia, Guinea, all the places nobody gives a shit about, sadly. Ivory Coast, Liberia, these largely African countries. Haiti is the one North American country that comes close. Papua New Guinea and Oceania, and then there's Asia overall, Gabon, Ethiopia, Malawi, Namibia, Fiji. Palestine is actually higher than Senegal and Eritrea. There's Libya. So, do we rank 49th in the world? Yes. Is the difference between it measurable in years or direct cause of death as far as like what's treatable? Because obviously our numbers are higher because of gunshots. Let's see. How about this? Let's look at cause of death by country. USA, whatever. Okay. That's our Leading cause of death vary by country. In most countries, it's cardiovascular disease or cancer, because that's usually what you die of at the tail end. Africa, infectious disease are more common. West African countries, leading cause. In South Africa, it's HIV/AIDS. Let's see. In the U.S., fast deaths. Heart disease, cancer, COVID-19 ranked up there because it was an infectious disease. These are the leading cause of death in the country. Heart disease, largely a lifestyle disease in America, beyond what healthcare can do. I think we could all agree that a lot of this has to do with diet, lack of exercise, that kind of stuff, right? Cancer of varying forms. There's cancers you cause yourself to get by smoking, and then there's cancer that you get because of shit in the water, and then there's genetic cancer. Accidents, which are also known as unintentional injuries, as opposed to that shit that kills rednecks all the time. 227,000. So accidents are the third highest cause. COVID was the fourth highest cause. And this is, I don't know what we're dating on. This is 2022. So this is gonna be an outlier year. Stroke, which I would argue is sort of up there with heart disease. Chronic lower respiratory diseases. This would be smokers' deaths and emphysema and other diseases along that line. Alzheimer's, again, late dementia, that kind of stuff. A lot of people will die from this, but that's age related largely. Diabetes, largely lifestyle, although not entirely. Nephritis, nephrotic syndrome, and nephrosis. This would be related in a lot of ways to diabetes and other stuff. Chronic liver disease and cirrhosis. That's alcoholism. Okay. So what are we spending more on? COPD. Yep. Would be related to that. Mesothelioma. That would be in the cancer department, correct? And that's not that is a that's less about treatment and just exposure that was the cause of that. And of course, diseases of the kidney, which are bugging my dad right now.
The kidney has a very special place in the heart.
Well, all right. Point is, one of the reasons we spend twice as much on healthcare is because we have more money to spend. Yes, gun deaths are in here, but they're not in the top. This is 2022 numbers. I don't know if let's see, deaths and mortality related fast stats. Let's see. That would be reasons for death. It's like death causes it to. Data for the U.S. Number of deaths, 3.2 million a year. This is a death rate of 984 per 100,000. Again, there's factors like baby boomers aging and getting older, and the outside of the baby boomer generation, reaching sort of their expected maximum. And those folks lived hard. Say what you will about previous generations, but if you think about the baby boomers as being a larger group of people, but also these are the hippies. These are the 70s. These are the first, the front edgers of the AIDS epidemic. There's a window from where these people were fucking around and fucking from 1962 to 84, where this was a big window of cocaine and lifestyle stuff and the hippie generation that had a follow-on attack on their life expectancy as well. Okay. I'm a high risk of cancer. Both parents died of it, but it could be from many factors like smoking and drugs. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of there's hereditary genetic thing, and then there's your parents had it, so you might too. That's how they used to talk about stuff before they could do tests on these things. Okay. So, heart disease, cancer, accidents, COVID, stroke, chronic liver, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, nephritis, chronic liver disease, life expectancy is 77.5. It's gone up since 2022 because of COVID dwindling. And that took a hit as well. the other thing that I don't think we talk about is that Americans, and okay, hold on. Let's look at this too, because it's important we talk about this. This is good. And I want to thank Groove Dragon for bringing this up. Per capita USA. Okay, so there's this idea. Yeah, here you go. So this is what we're used to seeing about this. Okay, so per capita, Americans spend $13,493 apiece in U.S. health. Well, shit, back up. Get out of here. U.S. spends more on healthcare than any other country, with annual health expenditures of over 4.4 trillion U.S. dollars in 2022. Now, 2022 was an outlier year as well because of COVID, like I said. And national health expenditures amounted to 13.4 U.S. dollars per capita. Now, part of the thing is, what do you consider health spending? Yeah, here's what do we spend compared to other countries? GDP per capita and health consumption per capita in the U.S. So this would be the United States, and this is GDP per capita is 77,000. So the health expenditure per capita is 12. Okay, so we spend 12, and we on average make 77. Here's Germany, where they average make 66 and they spend 8. Now that's, whatever, 2/3 of what we spend on it, and they make a full 12 less, whatever, 11,000 less per capita per person. So that's not a huge arguably they spend more per capita in terms of GDP than we do. Switzerland, there we go. This is the 100K zone. They average 90, they spend 8. This is Norway, where they average 121,000. They spend 7. Now, they do have a proper program. They have a proper health service and that kind of stuff. But it's a more active society. They have more omega-3s. Their diet is cleaner than the U.S. diet. And the standard American diet is what drives up that expenditure. So this GDP per capita and health consumption spending per capita, U.S. dollars, 2022, current prices and PPP adjusted. Now, here we are again. At the highest per capita. Now, the question is, what counts as health spending? Like, do some countries count dental as health care or as dentistry? Does the United States count it all together? Do facelifts count as health care? Right? Or do tummy tucks or a gastric bypass, right? Does that count as healthcare in that expenditure? Lipo, right? Does that count as a health expenditure, or is that cosmetic, or is it both? Right, okay. Quit smoking January 15th, 2008 using chance. Right on, big dog. Glad you quit. Right, I agree it shouldn't, but it kind of does, right? Now, so data from Australia, Belgium, France, the U.S. are estimated data from Australia, data from the rest of them are provisional. Okay, get the data, download, open that shit. Come on, I don't know. Look for it. I'm not going to shit. I open it with WordPad, I guess. I don't use PCs. This is nuts. What the fuck? That's not data. That's just a number. You asshole. Okay. So here we go. Health expenditures per capita, US dollars, current expenditures PPP adjusted 21 to 2022. So this is 2021. It's 2022. The question is, what constitutes this 2.9 increase is slightly higher than the previous increase between 2020 and 2021, much higher than the 9.8 increase from 2019 to 2020. Still much lower, sorry. It's health spending per capita increased between 2021 and 2022, with the exception of the Netherlands, where spending declined So a 2.9% increase, a smaller increase than in most comparable nations, though larger than in Australia, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Belgium had the largest increase per capita health spending among countries with available data between 2021 and 2022 because they added, whatever, like their budget is so small comparatively that adding all the PPE and COVID shit jacked it up. Health spending, comparable country average. This would be the thing. Austria 2009, 10%. United States 2009, 16%. Again, these are smaller. I don't know why they would. Why Austria? Because it starts with an A. Like the population's nowhere close. So here's France 2020, United States 18. Okay. I mean, this is good. Let's break into this. So the question is what qualifies as health expenditures? Average annual growth rate in health expenditures per capita in U.S. dollars, 80 to 2022, has been going down. Oh, this is U.S. and the comparable country average. Average annual growth rate it's been shrinking. So it was growing by 10% in the 80s. Then it grew by 5%. And then 2005, it grew by 7.2%. And so now it's close to regular, maybe 80s. Again, 80s could have been anything from AIDS to like new levels of medicine and the expenditure on it. New types of surgery available, right? That came online during that time. Then they got cheaper and easier to do. Think LASIK when it started versus LASIK now. Okay. So 2.7%, it's pretty much in line with regular inflation. Pretty close. Long had higher than average spending. Recent years have seen higher spending growth in other nations. Historically, the 80s saw accelerated growth in health expenditures per capita at 10%. That's what I just showed you. Looking at 5-year growth rates during the period from 2005 to 10, saw an average annual growth rate in health spending of 4.1 compared to 7.2% during the previous 5-year period. I mean, we can read the chart for fuck's sake. The question is, what counts as health care spending? And is all money spent in America on healthcare Americans spending money? Because we always hear about foreigners coming over and getting surgery at Yale and shit like that, right? So that matters. Let's see. What? Let's see. Hold on. Does cosmetic surgery count as medical I don't know if that'd be an expenditure or mental cost in U.S. per capita calculations. I can write capita. Hold on. Capita calculations. I don't care if I'm diving down a hole. This is fun. Okay, not to aesthetic plastic surgery procedures are most positively correlated with GDP. Aesthetic plastic surgery is volume is linked to, okay, here's aesthetic plastic surgery volume in the U.S. is linked to GDP, but not disposable income. So it's not about how much extra money people have. They get it even if they don't. It's just how, yes, it's a rabbit hole, Jimmy. I'm not afraid. Recession area has defied historical patterns of current economic situation. The investigation used by Pearson correlation tests to analyze the strength of association between 8 financial indicators and 24 variables, including case volumes and expenditures associated with certain procedures, and a total of 10 surgical procedures were considered. Breast augmentation, breast reduction, mastopexy. Okay. Abdominoplasty, sure. Liposuction, blepharoplasty, that sounds painful. Facelift and rhinoplasty, which is a nose job. There are 2 composite variables included: total surgical procedures and total injectables. Now that would be another part of it, was injectables, because some people will get an injection, of like Dermafil or whatever the shit that the dude on Newsmax stuffs into his face like marzipan, right? But they do it for because it can help with migraines. So they list it under migraines. So if you get Botox, I'm using it you get it, insurance pays for it because you're using it to treat your migraines that you get apparently by looking at your reflection and thinking I'm getting old and it gives you a headache. Let's see. What economic standard, large All right, that won't. I mean, this is good stuff because I do want to know this stuff. So, and it's, let's see. What medical costs / procedures are included in per capita medical costs in U.S. versus other countries? Sure, that'll work. Medical, okay, okay. So, in 2021, the U.S. spent $1,600 per capita on prescription drugs and other medical goods, while comparable countries spent $944 on average. The United States has the highest healthcare costs with 12 to 2022. U.S. health spending is higher than anywhere else in the world. Okay, yes, we get that. But for why? What drives health spending in the U.S. compared to other places? Let's look. This is Health System Tracker. Spends significantly more on it. He has worse health outcomes, like right, was the Inflation Reduction Act signed into law by Biden has several provisions aimed at lowering the cost of these prescription drugs. Priced higher in the U.S. That's the primary one, is the cost of prescription drugs. We spend twice as much per capita on health as other comparable countries, but we also lifestyle-wise need them. We have a higher level of obesity and that kind of stuff, right? Implants for mastectomies, that's right, Vincent. That would be counted as a healthcare cosmetic expense. Let's see. Though spending is higher in the U.S., there is little evidence that this gap is driven by higher utilization or higher quality of care. In addition to having generally worse health outcomes, people in the U.S. are less likely to see a doctor, have a long hospital stay, and be able to make a prompt appointment for medical care. The U.S. also has fewer physicians per capita than other countries, making access to care more difficult. So they're more expensive because there are fewer doctors. Spends as much, okay, comparable countries, again, I don't know what you're talking about. In 2021, U.S. spent nearly twice as much on health per person. And again, that's extrapolated out because, again, end-of-life care, we're spending it mostly when people are old. Both the U.S. and comparable countries spending on inpatient and outpatient care, which includes payments to hospitals, clinics, and physicians for services and fees such as primary care, specialist visits, surgical care, provider-administrated medications, and facility fees. See methods for more details. Okay, cool. That's what I need to see. Where's the methods? Methods, here we go. This brief is analyzed with health expenditure and financing data for the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. Excellent. Hold on, I'll blow this up for you guys. Defines outpatient care as comprises medical and ancillary services delivered to a patient who is not formally admitted to a facility and does not stay overnight. Long-term care is about the same. Okay, let's see. Including U.S. data consisted of current expenditures on health expressed per capita, current prices, current purchasing power, parity in U.S. dollars. Okay, data in this in U.S. dollars. Rounded comparable country data was taken by average spending data from countries that have above median GDP and above median GDP per capita. Because they did not have data available for 2021, Australia and Japan were dropped from the analysis. Current expenditures on health consisted of spending as a function of inpatient curative and rehabilitative care, outpatient curative and rehabilitative care, long-term care, ancillary services, medical goods, preventative care. This is the other one too, medical goods. That includes rascal scooters in the United States. I still stand by my claim, twice as much, 48 life expectancy. No, I'm with you. But the difference is would an expansion of expenditure change the life expectancy, Groove Dragon? That's what I'm chasing down. Does that make sense? Or would cheaper medical care? Are we talking about a lifestyle difference in these 48 other countries, or whatever, half of them, let's say, where it's semi-comparable, right? Or if we go by life expectancy by state, for example. Hold on. Let's see. U.S. life expectancy by state. As we know, one of the things about education spending we hear a lot from Trump and his ilk is that we have all this, we spend all this money, we spend so much on education, and yet we get these bad outcomes. When in reality, if we got rid of like 5 southern states, we'd be #1 in the world. And it's the states that, either won a block grant or drift money away from education to other stuff, and they've got terrible outcomes that weight the average in the other direction. So let's see. List of U.S. territories. Yeah. So let's see if I can. Federal search. Elections. Yeah, here you go. So this is kind of the point I'm trying to make. This is the United States. This is life expectancy, in the United States. Now, the black areas are 80.5 to 80.9 on average. This is a 2019. This is pre-COVID, but you get the idea. Where do you think, and this is really important, look at this. Where do you think most of the money being spent on life extension and cancer, and preventing cancer and treatments like that are happening in the country? I would argue New York and California, perhaps Washington State, some of the surrounding northeastern territories. That's where you're spending. Yale is right over there in Connecticut. That's where a lot of money is being spent on medical services, correct? And that's where the life expectancy is the highest. But look where the drop off is in life expectancy in the United States. And the Mayo Clinics in Minnesota, exactly. Look at California, New York, highest life expectancy in the fucking country. Look at, and all blue states, by the way, but in large part. And look at the South. Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma. Georgia has a little bit of a spike up. North Carolina does better than South Carolina, and that has a lot to do with the northern attitude versus southern attitude, diet, exercise, deep fried Snickers bars, shit like that. And this is kind of important because these are the states that are spending all the money. These are the states, like if you talk about people spending a lot of money to keep themselves alive, New York and California are the biggest ones. Yeah, New Jersey's way up there because it's ancillary around there, right? There's there's a lot of universities that have medical facilities attached to them, have hospitals attached to them, right? This is the exact same thing that I was showing you guys about education spending in the United States. 15 of the states that get the most federal funds and are at the absolute ass end of education results voted for Trump. And when he cuts spending from the Department of Education, those are the states it's going to help. I mean, it's going to hurt the most. It's like California. It doesn't get anything from the federal government for education or health care or any of this stuff. It pays more in to take care of these states. The states that are all full of self-important assholes like Mike Huckabee, who think that, these are where the bootstrappers live. Florida, California's in the jet black, but look at, Florida's kind of deep green. That's because people retire there and they live a little bit longer because they are the kind of people who expect to live past their retirement. Look at West Virginia and Mississippi, though, for fuck's sake. You're from Philly and you have the best research? Well, Pennsylvania's not bad. I mean, it's at, 78 to 70. Yeah, it's in the 78 to 78.4 region. But again, you got a lot of gun deaths. This includes other stuff too. This is overall all-cause mortality. Okay, so it's a fascinating point, but I think worth dealing with. Let's look at federal education spending by state. Let's see, public spending. Oh, that's public spending. I need federal dollars. Yeah. How much money is spent on education? Which states rely the most on federal aid? By comparison, here you go. States correlate. Okay, state and local revenues depend on federal money to different degrees. Percentage of total state and local revenues from federal government grants. California has 162 billion, which is 14% of its overall revenues are from the federal government. Texas is 22%. Louisiana almost is 30% of its budget, of its overall government revenues, come from the federal government. 30%. Kentucky, look at this. Mitch McConnell earned his fucking keep, people. 30%, 30.1%, higher than fucking Louisiana, which was 29.9. Mississippi, 25.9. Alabama, 26.7. New Mexico, because it's only 14 billion, so 30% is a higher number for lower parts of it, but they have a lot of those little schools. Montana, oh, look at that. The bootstrappers up there, 31% of their budget, receive 31% of its overall revenues from the federal government. And remember, some of this is military. Like there's some shit up in Montana and I would argue North Dakota and Wyoming. Wow! That they're getting a lot of like NORAD kind of money. So there's South Dakota. It gets 15%, which is low. But again, there's nothing, like it doesn't spend anything. There's not any fucking people there. It gets $2.6 billion in federal aid for its it's probably all federal. It's all the parks. That's right. There's Maine, gets 23%, 5.7%. Anybody, by the way, any state with a border can be expected to get a certain amount of it because they'll get, they're especially the southern border, which is what all this shit is. There's a bunch of that. But like Arizona got $31 billion. New Mexico gets 14. What the fuck did New Mexico do wrong? California, though, is a border state, and gets 14% of its budget. Alaska, 29%. Percentage of total state and local revenues from the federal government grants. These are just grants, too. These are not other stuff. Yeah. SNAP and Medicaid is another great example. Hold on. Which states get the most SNAP funding? Food benefits by state. Now, part of it, the per capita stuff will be out of the way, but here it is, SNAP participation by state. Okay, and this will be approximately 12.6% of Americans are participating in supplemental nutrition assistance program in November of 2022. Okay, so this is, let me shrink this down for you. Shrink down, you silly. Hold on. Control minus. There you go. Let's shrink this down a little bit so you can look at it. So these are SNAP participation by state from 5% at the lowest, which is, again, this is of the 12.6%, let's say, according to the Department of Agriculture, which administers the program, preliminary tally, 42 million Americans, around 12% of the nation, were participating in the program as of November 2022. In some states, the figure approaches 1 in every 5 residents. That would be states like Louisiana, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Illinois. Interestingly enough, 16% of Illinois residents participate in SNAP. Now, that's 2 million. That's because Chicago is gigantic and the Austin and South Side are impoverished. So you'll see a lot of that numbers. You'll see the like any country, any state with a big city, you'll see, because they have large volumes of people, you'll see a percentage, of people. There's 5 million people in California that are on 5.1 that are on SNAP. Meanwhile, there's 512,000 in New Mexico, but that's 24% of residents. That's a quarter of the people in New Mexico are on SNAP. Jesus Christ, I got to move there and run for office. Shit. West Virginia, 18% of the people in that state are on SNAP. God damn. Now, Pennsylvania's 14%. 14% in New York. That's about the, again, enormous size. This is New York residents participate in SNAP. Okay, so in a rolling thing, 2 million people there, 1.8, about the same Pennsylvania to New York. Michigan has 1.3, which is, again, by population. I don't know if they have them written out by, like, percentage of Americans experiencing food insecurity and loss of income. From, let's see. This was May of 2020. Was 40%. That's because of COVID, and now it's gone back down. Over here in this, I guess this is an older one, anyways. Because a lot of this will, let's see, to boost high inflation foods, states with the highest SNAP participation rates. Here you go. Here's the highest participation rates: New Mexico, Louisiana, West Virginia, Oklahoma, Oregon, Illinois, Alabama, Massachusetts, Nevada, and North Carolina. Fucking rip Portland. Rip Portland. So sad. That's, people forget that, like, Portland is a very rural state. And besides the stuff that's close to the water, it's a big chunk of land that might as well be Idaho. Louisiana, 20%. 19.5. New Mexico, 24.3%. Shit. A quarter of the fucking state has to get SNAP to survive. Yeah, 80% of those are red, and again, the other two are, are rural beyond the middle of it, like Oklahoma. like Illinois and Oregon, rather. But let's look at, and so this is kind of important to all these things. So, and by the way, SNAP benefits, for food and that kind of stuff. Let's see, show SNAP participation rates. This is the FDA. Here you go. All eligible people fiscally, okay, more options, select a state, select a year. This is the 2020 is the latest one. So this is 2018. Rate range of the people who are eligible, how many actually participate in it? Now, this is fascinating. Those who qualify versus those who actually get it. All eligible people, working poor, elderly. So these are the one or the other. So the working poor in these areas that qualify take SNAP or don't. And then elderly people in these areas take SNAP or don't. And then this is everybody who's eligible takes advantage of it. And in Pennsylvania, Illinois, New Mexico, Oregon, and Washington, almost everybody who qualifies for it, 96 to 100% of the people. So what it tells me is that in these states, they are making sure that people who need it get it. And then there's a softening of it once people, take it or don't take it out of pride. The fascinating part to me is that look at working poor in this situation. California, only 55 to 65% of the quote unquote working poor in California who qualify for SNAP actually use it. 55 to 65. Like, if you want, who are the fucking bootstrappers in this country? The people who qualify and don't take it. And that would be Wyoming and North Dakota and Kansas City and Arkansas and Virginia. These are they are 55 to 65% participation rate, but so is California. Meanwhile, Texas has a higher participation rate than California or Virginia. Now, again, Virginia, big portion of that is in and around the D.C. area versus the rest of the state, because you can see over here how purple it is around Kentucky and Tennessee, so it weights the average. I bet if you went by the state, let's see, more options, select a state, Virginia, get in here, you rat. There you go. You'd find that, well, we'll see. Let's see, select a year, go to 2020. Show me the state, goddammit. Can I click on it and it works? Nope. Guess it just gives me the number and just select it. That's not helpful. This is great. It's a great system. Thanks, guys. Have I bored or scared you guys yet? I think so. This is what happens when we get down a rabbit hole caused by this dipshit's hairdo. Also, for the record, in Kentucky, more people qualify for SNAP than take it. It's at, let's see, what is it at? Yeah, it's in the same zone as it's 55 to 75%, as opposed to 55 and 65 under California for all eligible. Working poor, California, Kentucky, where's these? Why am I not seeing the overall rates? Never mind. Okay. So the point I'm trying to make on this outcomes and the like, when it comes to like federal money spent on education, or if we looked at like SNAP participation, which is a dietary thing, or we look at education outcomes, like let's see, education, yeah, education outcomes per pupil per dollar US by state? Sure. Okay, expenditures per pupil on public and elementary and secondary education in the United States vary by state. Highest spending is New York, which spends $29,897 per pupil in 2022. Lowest spending includes Utah, Oklahoma, and North Carolina. Overall, spending on education per pupil increased 3.4% during the 2018 fiscal year. Let's see. This is 2025. We get real updated data. Let's take a look. Okay, so per pupil spending, and I'm assuming, yeah, New York is blue, so the reddest is the lowest, and then the bluest, and this is per pupil. So California spends $16,000 per pupil, and again, this is like a red state mixed with a blue state. So in the cities it'll be high, and in the other areas, and we got Montessori schools and shit like that. But New York overall state $30,000 per pupil. Chicago, Illinois, and our friends over Chicago, $20,000 per pupil. Wyoming, $19,000 per pupil because they don't have any. Washington State, 19. 18.5, here you go. But way down here, Arizona, $9,000 per pupil. Utah, Idaho at the ass end of that. Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee. This is their spending. Let's see. Here you go. So New York at the highest. Vermont, New Jersey, Connecticut, East Coast. Northeast is obviously doing this. Alaska, because it's expensive just to have schools because it's fucking freezing. Illinois, Pennsylvania. Again, some of this is just for buildings and the like that... it takes more to build a school in some of these places. Rankings in education. Here you go. Rankings. Ew. What the fuck? Global data sets. Age of consent by state. Jesus. What the fuck is going on in Nevada? Happiest countries in the world. Murder rate by country. Safest countries. This is going to be fast. Oh, boy. Poorest states. And what a shock. Blue laws by state. What? Oh, like homelessness population by state. Sure. Childcare costs by state. Brass knuckles legality. They're not legal here. Uh-oh. Shh. Average IQ by state. California's not doing too good because it's a very mixed population, I guess. Castle doctrine, that'd be stand your ground kind of laws. If somebody comes in your house, you can shoot them. Circumcision rate by state. Cleanest cities in the U.S., not very many of them, I guess. Divorce rate. Ooh, the South is not doing good. Boy, these rednecks just jettison their wives. Coffee production by country. Pet ownership statistics. That's adorable. All right, sideline. So, point of order, Mr. Chairman. Dog ownership rate. Pets overall in the one. Hold on. Pet ownership is this. 40% of people in California have a pet. New York, 50. Illinois, 48. Look at this. Mississippi, we got a shit ton of dogs down here. Arkansas. Wyoming's got the most fucking animals. I'm guessing dogs. or a bunch of fucking cats running around. Vermont, look at this. If I could write it. Vermont has the most cats. We like them because they are the kind of pets that people can have, and they're very inexpensive. We view dogs as the animals of oligarchy. If you think of kings, they always had dogs. But working people have cats because you got to work and they can take care of themselves. Oh. Maine, West Virginia, Indiana, cat ownership rates in 2016. Kentucky, we had 24 cats on our farm in Kentucky, so I don't know that this tells you the real picture. Is it how many people own pets or how many pets are owned by one person? Because we're in Nevada right now and we have 4. We used to have 5, but we've been chat. And in Illinois, this number has changed because Johnny Million has 2 new cats. So much love to Johnny Million. All right, where's this shit again? Cigarette prices. I love this site. Where has this site been all my life? Cotton production by country. Gee, China sure is purple. Median home price. California's through the roof, and nobody wants to live in Louisiana. It's very strange. I always love this too. Like, again, look at the places where the house prices are expensive, and that's also where all the medical expenses are also higher. And that's because people who own a lot of real estate don't want to die early, whereas the rest of these fuckers are like, you gotta die of something. Smoke them if you got them. The median home cost in Louisiana, though, is $260,000. That's silly. It's cheaper to live in Kentucky, and you'll live longer. And Tennessee, look at $385. That's fucking Nashville and Graceland, I guess. Look at up here, though. California's at $800,000. That's the median. And then what's up with Johnny? He got 2 new cats because he lost Flora, and so they fostered 2 more. I've gone full white rabbit. It's true. Well, because a lot of this shit we've been watching online is just chit chat until something happens. So I think it's best to go, forewarned is forearmed. Washington State's 621. New York is actually lower, but that's because there's New York City, which is through the fucking roof, and then there's rural New York all along up here, which is pretty fucking cheap. It's like Pennsylvania being Pennsyltucky. It's at $300K, and it's only slightly higher than Michigan and Ohio and Indiana. Like West Virginia's at $297. It's because there's so few houses there. Florida's at $409. Georgia, you think it's funny how like some of these places you'd think people, but I guess it's a lot of trailer parks. Quite frankly, that's what it is. All right, another one. At some point, I'm just going to have to do a banana production by country. You simmer. Black population by state. Look at this. Look at Texas. Texas got 4 million black people living in it. More than California. There's 3 million black people living in California. There's 4 million living in Texas. Some of these won't be that surprised. Vermont, we have 9,000. I know them all personally. New Hampshire has 20,000 black people. Maine has 25,000. North Carolina, 2.4 million. Florida with 3.7 million. Georgia with 3.5. North Carolina's got 2.3. There's Illinois. There's Chicago for you. It's largely in Michigan, like around the urban centers and stuff. Same thing with like Maryland. 2.2 million in Maryland. Look how small that is compared to like Illinois. Yeah, Maryland has as many black people in it as California. Just about. California has 2.8 million black people in it. Maryland has 2.2. 9 million Sanders residents. I know everyone. What's the price in Indiana? It was $270. 260. I think it was. And here you go. Let's look at education. Teacher pay by state. Look at the states with the highest educational outcome. Look at the states with the highest income per capita. Look at the states with the highest real estate. Look at the states and then look at the states that spend the most on teachers. Look at the states that have the lowest healthcare outcomes. Look at the states that have the lowest educational outcomes. Look at the states that have the lowest per capita income, and look at what they pay their teachers. You think that might be correlative, if not directly causative? It's funny that you try to look at it. It's funny. When you say, look at that. California is the like 7th largest economy in the fucking world, and they're second only to New York in what they pay their teachers. And largely that's because there's a shit ton. It's so much bigger that there's more rural area that they spread it out over than this state, so it waters it down a little more. Average public school teacher in New York makes $92,000. And an average one in California makes $87,000. Mississippi, $47,000. That's the average. Kentucky, $55,000. And not a shocker at all. $82,000 for Washington State, which is pretty high up there. And then, of course, Oregon does pretty well. But again, that's all the East Coast. It's all watered down. This number would be way higher if you broke it up. If you broke Oregon up and you were like, what is it? Past this line, what do they pay teachers going to the left versus to the right? Yeah, New York can make $92,000. Of course, it's more expensive to live. Again, home costs being what they are, it's correlative. But, I mean, there's a big part of that. So let's go down over here. There's New York. There's Massachusetts, $88,000. Connecticut, $81,000. Pennsylvania's up there with $72,000. That's not too bad. New Jersey at $79,000. Illinois at $72,000. Michigan, $65,000. That includes the UP, though, which is no man's land. What websites are these? This is called datapandas.org. I'll throw this up for you. So it's good to have paste that in there. That would be this, datapandas.org. And they go through and break down a bunch of these human trafficking statistics by state. This is going to be a shocker. Fuck. All right, can we just call it Mississippi is ass. Mississippi is a fucking blight. Every single fucking chart we look at, Mississippi is like, y'all need to stop, I got this. Worst of the fucking worst, buddy. Come on now. Miss Assissippi is right. Now, rate of human trafficking cases per 100,000 people. 6.38. That's in Mississippi. That's behind Nevada. Now, there's more people, I think. It's because there's only like 3 cities in Nevada. There's Las Vegas, Reno, and I take it back. There's 2. Right? Looks like Barbie exploded. That's just very sad. It's like yeah. California's only at 3.43. As big a fucking state, half the human trafficking cases of fucking Mississippi, mainly because they're taking all Alabama's clearly. Look at Florida, 3.26. What the fuck is up, Missouri? Missouri, Nebraska. Yikes. Like, you almost get we've always heard about human trafficking. Oh, the border states and human trafficking and the border states and human trafficking. Texas and California are basically in line. But, I mean, you're, like, Washington and Oregon, you might have stuff coming from Canada, like Chinese immigrants being trafficked up there, I would guess. Some of that shit. And this would be for farm workers and labor and shit like that. Look at the UP, man. 2.9. You guys know about the UP? Whew. But fucking Mississippi, man. Just, almost everything we look at. Average income. Let's look at average income. There it is. Bottom of the fucking barrel, baby. Let's check out another one. Fucking Mississippi. All right. Oh, wait. Well, here you go. This will be one. Prison population by state. California and Texas just running away with it, 139,000. Still, in a state that big, shockingly low number. 139,000 people in prison in Texas. Look at Florida, though, 84,000. California, 98,000. Now, this is state penitentiaries all throughout. Texas has 139,000. California, way behind, 40,000 fewer. You could argue we could go up by 10, probably. Florida at 84, Georgia 47, and again, once you're going by population, that's a huge percentage of fucking Do they do it by recidivism rate? This will be a good one. Fuck. People who go back to jail. There you go. Alaska. I mean, what do you expect? Here you go back. Delaware has the worst recidivism rate in the country. People who keep going back to jail. Fucking Delaware, man. What are you doing, Delaware? Now, there is a... can anybody spot, chat room, can anybody spot in the recidivism rate statistics the factor that might play against why you have lower recidivism in a high crime state? Bum, 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 bum. Why would Texas have a lower recidivism rate than other states? Bum, 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 ba-rum, bum, bum, bum. Any idea? I'll tell you why. Because they don't get out. That's why. That's right. There you go, Karate Joe. They keep them in jail forever. Well done. That's exactly right. It's the other reason, by the way, that America has more people in jail than other countries. Because in prison, because our prison population is higher, but our jail population per capita isn't that big a deal. And that's because people go to jail, get out, and maybe go back, and whatever. But people who've been in prison in the United States, it's because they've been to jail so many fucking times, they finally get to prison and they stay there. And our folks live their entire lives. If you're in prison in the United States, you're pretty much there for good. You get out, like we've let you out so many times in the United States, whereas other countries that, they don't release, like people don't, they either don't live in China or Russia or other places. They just fucking kill them or they all die of something. Ours die of old age. So that's the other reason, not just because we have a shit ton of prisons and the like, which is, again, have your feelings about private, but yeah, the private prison profit motive thing is less of a thing than it ever was. That's a talking point from the 90s that pretty much died an awful death a long time ago. It's something you want to avoid, but it's not a factor. So rankings in terms of, let's see, does the crime part? Okay. Crime, murder rate by country, safest countries in the world. Let's look at this. Oh, fuck me. These are... Okay, and the red is most dangerous. Whoops, sorry, hold on. Violence, acts of violence. I knocked my phone off my too. America and Brazil have almost the same global peace index. Canada, obviously benefiting from the fact that this is permafrost from here up, and that they're really friendly people. Canadians, I love you. You don't have to say I'm sorry when you open a door for someone. It's nothing to be sorry for. Yeah, Russia's fucked up. Russia is right up there with Congo. China is bullshitting everyone. Just letting you know. That's nonsense. Well, look, I did the weave by accident. This ties back into what we were talking about earlier, where people were bullshitting, themselves about what it's like in China and the like, if it's safer there and better education and all that stuff. No, it's not. Phone violence is a thing. It is. I'm sorry. What's up with China? This has to be self-reported. Yes, that's exactly right. Is that and again, the idea that, like, where are they? What would they be in line with? They're two, so they're in line with France. Fucking please. But and again, America, like, if you want to talk about a country that reports everything, understand that the United States, even in these numbers, we report everything. The FBI, local statistics, victims groups, NGOs, special interest groups or whatever, report every fucking thing that goes sideways always, ever. We still don't know China's COVID numbers. We do know that they are over 20 million. Just saying. Part of the reason why I'm not going back to the video as well is because for some reason all of my earbuds have decided to take a shit. So I don't know why. So we're just talking today. because if I try to hear a clip
very
I won't
often.
be
I
able
guess
to.
my hope
So,
is that you
I'm gonna
will
put
think
this
about
back
a
on the
different
charger
way of
and see
doing
if this
business
one
other than
will
just saying,
recharge at some
let's
point.
sanction
I don't
everybody and
care.
let's
I'm
call
enjoying
people names
myself
we don't
today,
like,
and that's
because I don't
all
think
that
it
matters,
helps. I think
ladies
it
and
actually
gentlemen.
makes the situation
If
worse.
I do say so
That
my
doesn't
damn
mean we
self, and
curl
if
up in
that's
a
okay
ball
with
and
you,
just say
you can
do
pay me to
whatever
go
you
to China.
want,
It was a
but there
lovely
has
place
to
when
be
I
some give and
used to
take.
go,
There
but
has to be
now
something we
it's
take
just
back.
fucking
And so I guess
sad.
my general question to you would be,
And the idea, by the way,
we know a lot about
that
the
in the
stick.
global
We know about
peace
sanctions and this and that.
index, Iceland
Do you
is way
see
up
any
there, but that's not
possibility
fair.
of
It's
any
too
carrot
fucking cold to
with
fight.
China to
And
make
New Zealand,
relations better with
where,
China?
you know, if you
Well, let me first
punch to
say,
the
indeed,
right,
I've
the
been
video- the
strongly
video
worded
is
in
on.
my
It's
views
not
of China.
playing
Let me
on.
just
It is
point
now.
out they've said mean
Is it?
things about
Did it
me
start
too,
playing?
and
We hear the clip.
I'm
and
not
me?
sure that they're fans
Hold
of
on.
mine in that
Oh,
regard.
it's playing. Sorry. Yeah, look at that. See, that's what I get because my headphones were dying. There you go. Sorry, got it. As a matter of fact, fuck it. Knocking it off so it doesn't happen again. There's no fucking way that Ireland is totally safe like that. Just go into a pub and say the wrong thing and you get your ass kicked. And there you go. Just letting you know. I fixed it. All right. So, human trafficking statistics, prison population by state, crime rate by state. Of course, there's fucking Louisiana kicking Mississippi's ass in one particular case. Domestic violence by state. Ay. Shocking. Look at Mississippi. Kentucky way up there. And again, this is often reported. So you'll get places that report it or take it more seriously on par with places that don't and just have a shit ton of it. But Kentucky, 45.3% of women experience domestic violence. Now, I had a joke in my act, and this should explain it to everybody, years ago. I had a joke in my act about women who get lip plumper. And the joke was basically like, if I wanted to date a woman who looked like she'd been punched in the mouth, I'd have stayed in Kentucky. And so few people got it that it was a social commentary joke about Kentucky. And of course, that women, you don't need that shit. Now, I understand where your judgment will come from because I have full, beautiful lips and you're like, well, you have privilege. You're absolutely right. Hold on. That's okay. Yes, duck face and all that shit. Right. So, Arizona, 42%. Nevada, 43%. California, though, 34.9. New York, 31.7. What do you know? But look up here, West Virginia, Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, Michigan, Michigan, Wisconsin. I went straight to the UP up here, which has got to weight the average. Fucking UP, man. Do you guys know what the UP is? The Upper Peninsula? It's the part in Michigan nobody... Yeah, 31%. This is datapandas.org, folks. And again, take some of this with a grain of salt, but here you go. Mass shootings by country. Now, 101, number 1, the United States. Canada's number 5. They have 4. Russia, 21 mass shootings. China, 1. 1118 in France. 101. Now, does anybody else see what's wrong with the America has the most mass shootings of any country in the world? Does anybody see what might be, say, missing / redacted from the... Of course we're number 1. But one of the reasons we have them is that, see all the gray areas? Not counted. See the gray? These thing, that up here, this is the not reporting. Not reporting, not reporting, not reporting, not reporting, not reporting, not reporting. Also, does anyone believe that somebody's never walked into a school with a gun in Africa and shot the place up? Anywhere on the continent of Africa? Does anybody believe that? Does anybody? See what I mean? Yeah, I would argue Russia's bullshitting too. And they've had more of them lately. Does anybody believe that nowhere in Asia or the Middle East is somebody in fucking Myanmar, Burma, however you want to call it, has not walked into a school and shot the place up at some point? Does anybody think? that there have been 101 mass shootings, not just schools, mass shootings. Somebody walks into an area for any reason at all, shot the fucking place up. Right? That's 101 in the United States. We're number one for that. Now, think of all these other countries. Does anybody believe that there have been, never mind zero, less than 30, less than 50, less than 100? Right? Okay. Now, does that mean we don't need to solve our problem? No, it doesn't. But this would be another example of a chart that tells you nothing. Also, you want to break these down by state and by, well, like, again, what qualifies as anything over 3 people is a mass shooting? Because we lowered, depending on how you look at it, raised or lowered the standard, right? Disparity of wealth correlates with lethal violence. Hold on. Wait. No one has the disparity of wealth that we have. Wait. No. Groove Dragon, please. Disparity of wealth correlates with lethal violence? No. Are you telling me that America on the streets anywhere has more lethal violence than Haiti or Darfur or Chad or Nigeria or South Sudan, that area? For real. Yeah, where's Gaza? That's a good point, right? Not included. None of it. None of this is even charted. Here's Yemen, for fuck's sake. Not even anywhere. Is there any correlation? If that's the case, is there any correlation between that in these areas? Yeah, South Africa. I mean, that's a great example. So let's look at that real quick. So chat room, this is important, right? Let's see, South Africa violence. Now this is just news. The hard part will be showing. Let's see, drag. Here's this one. This is 10 hours ago. Oh, don't give me the article. Don't make that a pay article. Hold on. Provincial leaders in Gauteng schools in 2024 compile a report on what's causing the high level of violence, and findings focus on the intensity. Focused intervention study will be used to tackle violence at the Gauteng Provincial Legislature and Department of Community Safety. Compile this violence rife in schools report, focus on factors contributing to school violence, suggest programs that could do this. Little warning, among the common themes at the schools, visit or prevalence of dangerous weapons, substance abuse, school premises. Boom, here we go. So 10 reasons behind school violence. This is South Africa. Believe in here is communities high rate of poverty. Okay, variety of weapons, sharp objects brought to school, lack of adequate security, gangsterism and tribalism, lack of parental involvement, lack of health role models, lack of training and programs geared towards supporting at-risk learners, skipping classes to gamble and consume substances, inadequate psychosocial support at schools for learners and educators, learner councils not involved in the development of school safety plans, shortage of chairs and desks, leading to arguments between learners and educators, insufficient sporting and recreational facilities, proposed suggestions. These are the generalist thing. And then here's the why were Africa's violence levels up in 2024. This is the ISS. Increasing levels of extreme poverty in Africa were turbocharged by COVID-19, fueling the fire of relative deprivation. 2024 was a bleak year for Africa. Libya and Sudan were partitioned. Ethiopia struggled to contain insurgencies in Tigray, Amhara, and Oromia. And conflict continued in South Sudan and Somalia. Coups placed 4 countries in the Sahel under military regimes of violent extremism, spread terror in northern Mozambique, Mali, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Niger, and elsewhere. In Kenya, a punitive new tax regime resulted in riots, leading President William Ruto to sack his entire cabinet. In Nigeria, Bola Tinubu similarly struggled to effect painful economic reforms after inheriting an unsustainable fiscal situation. That would be the Chinese Belt and Road stuff, by the way. The debt incurred by those African nations from China and they were like, oh, by the way, we own your airport now. In some regions, especially the Sahel, instability and poor development that followed polls led to a resurgence of the military and politics. This is places where nobody has anything. But the sham that has passed for democracy in the coup-affected countries damaged the brand, firing a yearning for stability in which development and democracy is not possible. In addition to poor leadership, deeper structural drivers constrained Africa's growth. Okay, this is the academic. And then COVID-19 killed a bunch of people who were, the people that they needed to feed people. And then, let's see back here, the Independence Online. Language is violence. Black lives don't matter, even to blacks. That was this kind of tendency there as far as gun violence. A nation's soul is judged by how it treats its most vulnerable. By this measure, South Africa stands on shaky ground, its promises of equality and justice faltering under the burden of inequality and neglect. The slogan, "Not yet Uhuru," captures the unfulfilled promise of freedom, a dream deferred by systemic oppression and indifferences and complicity of those who should know better, black people themselves, who have reached a point where black individuals and elite, themselves survivors of apartheid's brutalities, have turned their backs on the very communities from which they originated and emerged. This is an opinion piece on this idea as well, but you get the picture. Immeasurable levels of violence in those areas, and none of this shows up in the chart we were looking at. These would be Limpopo. Yeah, I'll give you another example, and this would be for the Only in America crowd. 11 murders in 3 days. Limpopo police believe domestic violence drove New Year's killings. Police in Limpopo, once dubbed one of the safest provinces in South Africa, have recorded 11 murders between New Year's Eve and 2nd of January, arrested 7 people in connection with the crimes, according to spokesperson Colonel Malasela Ledwaba. Police believe most of the murders occurred amid domestic disputes. These murder cases were reported in the main Capricorn district, 3 cases, Mopani, 3 cases, and Waterberg and Vihembe, 2 cases. One of these murders, 7 suspects have been out of these murders. 7 suspects have been apprehended by the police. Among the murders was an incident in which a woman was killed, allegedly by her husband in Bolobedu on New Year's Day. In another incident, a 48-year-old man was killed, allegedly by his 45-year-old brother during an argument. And a 26-year-old woman was stabbed to death by her 31-year-old boyfriend. I'm just telling you, like, people are people, so why should it be? You and I should get along so awfully. Bonk, bonk, bonk. There's a lot of parallels the world over, and a lot of times the problems and the solutions are very similar, and if we'd stop pretending that it was unique to us, we might even find comparable solutions in other areas where they've managed to fix it, right? Not against guns, just regulate them. I agree. Here's by the way, if you look at this picture, this is what like Republicans want you to think downtown San Francisco looks like. As a matter of fact, I remember one person on Twitter a while back, maybe even when it was still called Twitter, showing a picture of looting during the South African violence as San Francisco. Continued violent looting, destruction of property, loss of lives fueled by criminal justice failures, ongoing deadly unrest amongst parts of South Africa, fueled by criminal justice failures and years of impunity for violence. Amnesty International South Africa said today, as the death toll continues to rise. South African authorities cannot pretend to be surprised by the proportions this violence has reached. Authorities watched while organized groups blocked the roads, burnt properties, and looted shops and factories last week. The director of Amnesty International South Africa. Riots began last week, and this was in 2021. A lot of this was semi-COVID related, but a lot of it was also, military stuff. The point I'm trying to make is, if a mass shooting is anything that involves more than 3 people, that I've just given you like 7 examples of how the United States doesn't even chart compared to some other places. Doesn't mean we don't have a problem to solve. We absolutely do. But we have to talk about our problems in a realistic way, if that's okay. Because, again, this is the chart we just looked at. This is the chart we were looking at right here. Mass shootings by country. Number 1, United States of America. Will we ever solve our problem if this is how we think? You could almost argue that, you know how they did that poll a while back where they asked people, you know, who had watched Greta Thunberg talk, that she demotivated more people than she motivated. More people went, well, I guess we're fucked. Smoke them if you got them, after watching her talk, than went, we've got to do something to save the planet. Most of them came away with, it's over. There's nothing I can do. And it actually lowered people's action of doing anything about it. Because they wrote it off. It's too big a problem. America will never be able to handle its gun problem. We're number 1 in the world, right? And all of it is aligned with this kind of machismo gun shit that maggots talk about. But how many of you think that if we compared the United States to, you know, war zones or Haiti or something like that, and looked at the mass shooting numbers and paralleled it, that all of a sudden maggots would go, wait a minute, we have the same number of mass shootings that Haiti has, and their own racism would kick in to make them want to stop thinking this was something to brag about? I'm dead serious. We have this many because, you know, we also have a bunch of things that we solve with these, whatever, blah, blah, blah. If you didn't have a gun, all these other bad things would happen, right? The tyrannical government, yada, yada. Yeah? Also, the 101 shootings, again, you know, this is during our history. There are places in this world where there are, you know, this isn't per year. Fuck, did the Russian one go up since the last time we looked? It's 21. Maybe it's serial killers. Let's look at this. Yeah, there you go. Serial killers by state. California, a lot of truck drivers. Number of known serial killers, 15. Texas with 8. Look at New York, 18. Son of a bitch. Now again, who remembers my favorite quote from Mindhunter? Mindhunter's the first of the Hannibal Lecter series. Mindhunter, where Edmund Kemper says, it seems to me that the things, all of your insights have been gleaned about serial killers from the ones you've been able to catch. So these are not necessarily where the most of them come from. These are where the ones that we've caught come from. Yes, that was the Will Graham one. That's right, Remo. Per capita? Yeah, no. Like, I don't know if they have a they listed by per capita. This is just a number. I don't even know that you could chart it per capita. I mean, because California has 44 million people and 15 serial killers. New York has a similar. We got to overlay these at some point. One from Florida. Bullshit. Ted Bundy was caught there. I would like to say, not only did. What are you just only counting the ones from there? Well, fuck. You can't just say, because like he was. What did he come from? Washington, went to Colorado, and then he ended up in Florida, but you're going to make him Washington's fucking problem? Yeah, prick. And again, we catch ours. What happened with Indiana? Illinois has 7. Wisconsin has 3. But Dahmer, Ed Gein, and who else? So, yeah. Prison population by state, crime rate by state, domestic violence by state, safest states. Okay, I have crime checked in here as a thing. So, Hispanic population by state, no surprise. Look at California and Texas. A lot of other ones don't want to admit it. Blue laws. This is porn, right? Porn laws? Yeah. This is the number of laws about, like, I guess, sexual content and stuff. Absolutely. Alaska has. Okay. Sunday alcohol, no consumption. Restrictions, no restrictions. So if California, Sunday alcohol consumption restrictions. Oh, this is just alcohol? Yeah. Okay. Sunday alcohol consumption restrictions. That's a blue law. Okay. Wyoming. Oregon has restricted Sunday consumption. I guess it's because the stores are closed, right? That would be it. Okay. Big Mac index. Oh boy. Child care costs, homeless population. No, the West Coast is full of them because people live. Gee, I wonder why. You kind of wonder why the heavily populated states, 74 million people or 74,000 in New York, which are almost entirely around the New York, New Jersey area, that one area where the rest of them is kind of light compared to California and the West Coast and down here. All the areas where either you have the money to have shelters, which would be New York and these areas, or you simply can live outdoors most of the year and not die. So average IQ by state, clearly I raise it wherever I go. California, 95. What the hell? What do they have, like 3 geniuses living in Mississippi? I call bullshit. Maybe they're all criminal masterminds. Look at fucking Minnesota, though, 103. North Dakota, 103. It's all these engineers and people. New York, not doing so good, 100. New York and Texas is the same. I guess it's kind of evened out. Massachusetts, 104. I think MIT's doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. New Hampshire, there you go, at 104. Shit. Pegging it out. New Hampshire and Massachusetts just killing it. But North Dakota and Minnesota, both of them, and again, what's the fall off? Louisiana, 95.3. Simmer down. Then, all right, we're almost done. This is fascinating to me. We did median home price, cotton production worldwide, sure. And again, that was what I was talking about initially with China. Look at this shit. The United States does 3.6 million metric tons in cotton production. China does 6.2. We're more than half of what they produce, and we don't use slave labor. India, 6.2. They're equal to China, and they don't use slave labor either. It's fascinating how you can do that. You can produce a lot without doing it. Brazil, a lot of it. And then, of course, Australia has a lot of it, and that's because that's a dry brush state. Turkey does a bunch. And then, of course, Mexico does some. Not a lot, though. Which state has the most private prisons? It doesn't really say that. It just goes by, that I've seen anyways. Countries in Africa, geography, but largest countries in Africa, teacher by birth rate, Gini coefficient. Yeah, per capita income by state, average income by state, wine production by country. States with the lowest cost of living. Gee. Hawaii, highest level, highest cost of index, cost of living index, $1.84. It's going to cost you $1.37. Whereas Mississippi, as smart as people are, nobody wants to fucking live there because there's too much crime and human trafficking and drugs and shitty people. And but California is slightly higher than New York, but only barely. But Massachusetts, man, 149, second highest. So the lowest. Cost of living, lowest. This is one of those lists where you want to be at the bottom, I guess. Mississippi at the bottom with Oklahoma and all these things. But way down here at the bottom, there's Hawaii, Massachusetts, California, New York, Alaska, because where livable land is premium. Maryland, because of D.C. And Oregon, because of fucking Portland and the surrounding areas. And then Connecticut, New Hampshire, Vermont. That we a very expensive place to live, but the dollar goes farther. Safest countries in South America. Not Brazil, apparently. Here we go. Murder rate. Cities with the most murders. Murder rate by city. Let's see if there's a difference. Las Vegas. Hold on. What is it? Oakland, murder rate 17.1 per 100,000. Las Vegas, 31 per 100,000. Kansas City, 31. Jesus. Detroit, 39. Cleveland, 33. Baltimore, 51. Fucking hell. St. Louis, 69. Hello. Memphis, 27. New Orleans, 40. Tulsa, 18.6. St. Louis is the highest. Baltimore, New Orleans, Detroit, Cleveland, Las Vegas, 31. Kansas City, Missouri, not Kansas, but whatever. Distinction because they overlap. Chicago, Newark, Cincinnati at 23. Look out. Philly, 20. Milwaukee, Tulsa, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, Oakland. Oakland's way down here, actually. D.C. at 17. Atlanta, Georgia at 16. And then I wanted to see if in this murder rate, this is cities with the most murders, murder rate. Is this the same fucking thing? Yeah, it is. I don't know why. You're disappointing me, Data Pandas. Rape statistics by state. Oy. By country. Oy. Okay, look at this. This will go by your reported stuff. Some countries will have a very low rate because they don't report. Other states will have a very high number because you can report and be honest about it. Alaska, yikes. 148 per 100,000. Off the fucking charts, Alaska. California's at 37.5. And New Jersey's at 17.2. Connecticut at 21. But Mississippi's at 25. Florida, 39.4. What's the worst? The Reds are the worst area. Look at fucking South Dakota. Jesus. Michigan, Nebraska, Colorado. Yikes. And then this is by country. Now, again, America, look at this. Number 13, 27 per 100K. Canada, 1.6 per 100K. Way down. Mexico, 13.2. Brazil doesn't even report. Most of Africa doesn't report. Russia, 3.4. Really? China doesn't report. Look at that. I would argue if you automatically get to the top of the list if you don't report. Botswana has the worst at 92 per 100,000. Lesotho, South Africa, Bermuda, Sweden at 63.5. Wow. And again, this is you'll see these as like reportable NGOs versus, like reporting for victims versus the legal system actually works so everybody feels comfortable reporting if it's happened, right? So this will be a staggering thing for some countries, and then other ones will just be reported like Australia, Belgium, USA are almost in line. Australia and Belgium have more than the United States. UK is, 0.02 behind us. New Zealand, and Zimbabwe. A lot of this you're going to see just not reported. Woof. Yeah, I know the Sweden one caught me off guard. But again, that's the reported part. Say that it was countries in the most corrupt countries. Let's look, shall we? So, gee whiz. Libya, 17% corruption. Hold on, what's the standard? 69% corruption perceptions. Corruption perception index. Somalia is the lowest, so nobody cares. Like, I guess it's if you give a shit about corruption. Because Australia and New Zealand are like, New Zealand's 87%, Australia is 75%. So you want to be on that end of things. You want to be way down here in the corruption perception index. Like Denmark's 90%, Norway 84%, the US is at 69%. Look out. But way down at the bottom of people like, well, it's just life. Stuff sucks. Egypt, Zimbabwe, Chad, Syria at 13%, Somalia, like nobody can even bother. South Sudan, Venezuela, Yemen, North Korea, Burundi, like nobody's even allowed to say anything in North Korea, so that should tell you something. 45% in China. 73% in Japan. China's a coin flip, according to the people there. I'm dragging this on, aren't I? Are you guys all right? You still with me? Because I feel like I'm, I kind of don't give a shit because I find this fascinating. And it got us down, and I want to thank Groove Dragon for bringing it. Please, Hal, check out Mr. James Gilligan and Dr. Brandy Lee on connection between wealth disparity and lethal violence. I will gladly do it, but I will also say that there is a lot of science on the idea that crime causes poverty more than poverty causes crime, because inherently poor people are not inherently criminal. And the belief that poverty, causes a rise in crime or drives people to criminal behavior speaks ill of the poor more than it speaks ill of the system. So that's why I push back on it. Oh, good. I like stats also. This is great. I got a subscription to Statista because of you guys, because we needed it. To that rate, people were asking about gun deaths and all that kind of stuff, and gun crimes and the mass shooting part of it. This should give you another example, chat, if I may. Look at our old friend, Mississippi. Top tier gun deaths per capita by state. There it is, Mississippi, just sucking fucking wind at every turn. California 9.2. Not the bottom, but not anywhere near the top, and especially per capita on a diverse state like that. New York is at 5.5, not high at all comparatively. Massachusetts 3.5, but 32. Fuck me. Louisiana's at 28. These are all in the 20s. New Mexico, with our old friend with low education spending. Mississippi 2, right? Louisiana 28.9, New Mexico 27.4, Wyoming at 26.6, Alabama, Alaska, right up there with all the rapes. Alaska's sketchy as shit. Montana, these are gun deaths, right? Missouri. Now, again, does it say self-inflicted? Is it shootings? Are these all created equal? That's a good question to ask. Wouldn't you agree? Lies, damnable lies, and statistics. That's one of the reasons, Johnny Deltronic, in our chat room. It's an excellent point. Damn, what's up with Mississippi? It's kind of a dump on so many fronts. It needs fixing. It's what the fuck is going on? Across the board, Mississippi just, And again, I bet you anything there's a big industry there that controls most shit. And it's, what do you think, docks and oil rigs, shit like that? All right, and this is the sketchy part. I don't know. Here's all the places where we'll find out where 16 in all these states. Is that the lowest? Hopefully, 16, 17, and 18. These are the states of consent. And remember, Alan Dershowitz wrote a whole paper about how he believes that there should be no age of consent. It's absurd, because if teenagers can fuck teenagers, then adults should be able to fuck teenagers, according to him, which is fucking gross and stupid and nasty and awful, and fuck him. Figuratively, because he's a scumbag. No surprise, the states with the highest education stuff oftentimes will have 18, 18, 18, 18. Tennessee did 18, and so did Virginia in Virginia, again, its proximity to D.C. probably had a lot to do with that. Wisconsin at 18. North Dakota at 18. Florida at 18, but that's because you reverse the number, and there should be a top-out number, like no sex over 81. I'm kidding. People should have long, vibrant sex lives. I'm with Dr. Ruth on this, well into their whatevers. Just as long as you remember to moisturize, because old people their skin gets very dry and they can burst into flames. So they rub up against each other. Foof. I'm just saying, forewarned is forearmed. All right. So no surprise, I guess, that some of these have done it in response because they had to. North Dakota, these reek of lawsuits. It's like when you get a microwave and it says there's a little addendum in your microwave instructions, say don't use this to dry your pets. Like, why the fuck is that in there? Because somebody tried. So, and these had to be raised to 18 because something happened, right? Tennessee, there was definitely a lawsuit, right? And people are like, And meanwhile, Kentucky's still at 16. Indiana, Ohio, Michigan. Shit, the majority of states are 16. The next, and then the equal number of 17 and 18, I think. Look at fucking Nevada, this sea of 16 in the middle of 18s. Look at it, it's like all these states are reacting to Nevada, going, these motherfuckers. We gotta have these Nevada assholes coming over into our city. We gotta change the laws. This will bleed into our shit. Utah, 18. That's why they have to take their little sister wives to Mexico. Alabama, all this shit. Fuck. Happiest countries in the world. Murder rate by country. We looked at this. Maybe this is a good one to look at. I don't know. Here's the murder rate. Murder rate in the United States is 4.9. We are 76th. Look at that. Right up there. We're, if we got 49th in healthcare outcomes, we're 76th in the number of homicides. Out of all these countries, China's full of shit. 0.53. They're 178. Please. That's because they got a giant group of people. South Africa's at 36.4. Brazil at 27. Venezuela at 36.69 homicides per 100,000 people. Your statistical chance of being killed in Mexico, Venezuela, Brazil, South Africa, Nigeria, South Sudan, and Central Africa are kind of a wash. There's Russia, number 48. Russia is with homicides where we are with healthcare. 48 in the world. Yep. BS CIA says Central America is the highest in the world. Well, that's what we track too. The CIA doesn't give a shit about the murder rate in fucking Singapore too much. You know what I mean? So we would be more concerned about this. We'd be more aware of it. Canada next to nothing. Greenland has a higher homicide rate than we do. We have to take that place over. Denmark, what are you doing? Australia, 0.89, less than one person per 100,000. New Zealand, even lower. Kenya is at 10. Tanzania is at 6.4. I would argue, let's see, 3.26 is Liberia. Okay. Some of these countries, Senegal is 0.27. That's pretty good. Either that or they're not keeping track. They're surrounded by an area of gray, so hard to say. Algeria, Morocco. Let's see if we can jump straight into something, though. Let's go over to here. Saudi Arabia, 1.27. Syria, 0.88. Do you believe that? Jordan, 136. Israel, 149. West Bank and Gaza, 0.49. So there are fewer homicides in Gaza than there per capita than there are in the United States, according to this, and Iraq, and Iran. Right. Mainly because I guess you can beat a woman to death for not wearing the right clothing, and right. So she's not. That's not going to chart, I'm guessing. Yep. We went through the prison population by state. We did this. Domestic violence by state. A lot of parallels there. Crime rate by state. Here we go. This is the crime rate. If you're going to... what's the average? The highest is New Mexico. Again, Louisiana, Colorado, South Carolina, Arkansas. And by the way, one of the reasons why Mississippi is lower is because they don't count criminal crime rate. Check the suicide rates. I don't know that they have those. I will check them. Groove Dragon. Arkansas is right up there. South Carolina. This is the crime rate, and you can tell all shockingly blue states. Lauren Boebert states number 3. New Mexico, Louisiana, South Carolina, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Washington State, Tennessee, Oregon, Missouri, Alaska, Utah, Hawaii, Arizona, Texas, North Carolina. Where's this California? There it is. California, number 19. Crime rate per 100,000 right there. Below Alabama, just above Montana. Mississippi, I call bullshit. Nevada, because gambling, if you lose, that's not considered a crime. Pennsylvania, it's way down here. New Hampshire, is doing pretty good. Vermont, we have more guns than people know, so there's going to be some of that, you know. And we also, what we consider a crime, you know, is much higher than what other people consider a crime. And something in New Jersey that happens would not be considered a crime in Vermont. So they don't even bother to count it. We would. Safest states. Obviously not New Mexico. Shock. California's 29th. What's number one? Let's see. The safest state is Massachusetts, of course. New Jersey, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Maine, Idaho. Idaho, because there's nobody around. Iowa, because nobody cares. Minnesota, Nebraska, Vermont. A lot of many places rural and not a lot of big cities. Gets pretty safe pretty quick. New York, though, doing pretty well at 12. Wisconsin, 13. North Dakota, and at the bottom of the barrel, Louisiana, Alaska, because of all the rapey, murdery, serial killer guys. New Mexico, Tennessee, Nevada. Nevada's up there because it's a lot of passers through. Mississippi. Oh boy. Missing persons by state. Alaska is the most, clearly. 42. Fuck off. Oh my God. Just because people just go up there and fucking vanish. Dr. Steve Bro, yeah, for your health. Let's check it out. Let's look at these statistics. Statistics are very important. Also, if you think about it, let's look at it for your health. Let's check it out. Yeah, don't fucking go anywhere in Alaska. You guys know about that serial killer in Alaska who like pick women up and fly them out in his plane and just fly over areas and dump them? Indigenous women, that's part of it. That's part of it. Let's go to Oklahoma. Okay, missing people, 6.2. Higher than Texas, higher than California, way higher than Kansas, like it's surrounding states. Like Arkansas has more. So Arkansas, oh, this is a good point. Okay, so 62 and 65, 6.2 and 6.5. Let me show you something real quick. Like a little geography lesson, kids. Hang out. Let's get, let's see. U.S. map of native reservations. Okay. Map of Indian lands in the United States. U.S. Department. There. Okay. Then we got a journal here. Here we go. So, can we check this out? All right. So, remember what I showed you about, where are we? Back here. Fuck you. Yeah, okay. Missing persons by state. 6.2, 6.5, right around the top of Texas, right here. Okay? See that area? Remember that. Now, these are the native territories. Here it is. This is the edge of Arkansas. This is the edge of Missouri. This is Kansas. This is Oklahoma. Almost eastern Oklahoma region is almost entirely native land. Like Oklahoma is really just this. If you count the sovereign land versus the U.S. official U.S. land, this is fucking Oklahoma right here, right here. And so, and in this region, like they just, even the areas over here where they define like the northern, like the plains region, I want to scoop in even further on this. So, pretty fascinating. Like there you go. So the eastern Oklahoma, there's the Osage right in here, the Pawnee Agency, the Chickasaw, the Onondarko, the Concho. This is Cherokee land. Like these are all areas, the Kickapoo, the Iowa Indians, Sac Fox. Like this is all basically native land. This is technically, in large part, and it's a lot of it is empty, yes, but it's all native territory. So the people that go missing from there, they don't, half the time the locals don't report it. or if they do report it, it's taken as a missing, but they're treated like a foreign person who has gone missing. Like it's up to them. Like they don't, the native territories don't have an FBI of their own, as it were. And if they go over the edge of this, they don't necessarily coordinate with the state agencies to see if they might be, they might be missing from here and listed as missing from here, but they're living here and they just don't care to go back. And so nobody in Arlington, Texas is talking to the, Okmulgee agency about where somebody might have gone missing from. And this person doesn't necessarily want to be found. So they have a lot of that going on there too. So that's one of the things, right? It's a huge swath. It's huge. And this is Oklahoma. For officially, like I would argue, Oklahoma is just this little chunk of shit right here, this little piece. Because this might be called the Eastern Oklahoma region, but that's native territory. So there's the Kickapoo traditional land over here. I don't know why in the Southern Plains they don't list it on here, but that's the. Let's see if I can find a better map of the native territory in here. This is an earlier Great Plains Basin. Okay, this is like kind of pre-area where people might have. And by the way, if you ever look at the map of like who's who and the Plains Indians and the Great Plains and the Basin Indians and the East and all that stuff, they fucking killed each other all the time. I mean, it's not that different from like the Germans and the Roman tribes and the Germanic tribes and fighting each other in Europe. Almost nothing different. It was just everybody fighting over resources, and some people got increasingly cruel about it, and other people bandied. Like once they aligned with the Spanish, they got horses from them. Horses are not indigenous to the United States at all, and so it was considered a huge leap forward to get and master the horse. And so tribes that got the horses wiped out the ones that didn't in short order, long before the East Coast was settled. It's fascinating stuff. I recommend people read about the Deerfield Massacre, because it's one of the reasons why there's a Deerfield in so many states, even though there's no there were no deer in that field. It's a fascinating read. Okay, here, I'll open this one up. Open this image in a new tab and we will look at it. Excellent. Okay, so I would argue, if you'll notice, Texas doesn't list theirs the same way, but everybody else does. So go back. This is that area I was talking about. Look at this area right here. See this? This bit right here. And then, of course, this little lip of it as well. Like, they don't consider like this part and this part to be the more of Oklahoma, sort of. So the Creek, Kickapoo, Comanche, Kiowa, and others are all kind of grouped in here. And the irony of that is fucking crazy, considering how the Comanche were to everybody. Up here is all these little lands. I think, for me, this stuff should be on every map. I think when you see a map of the United States and there's a reservation in a state, it should be missing from the map. It should be a blank spot in the map. Because it's sovereign territory. It is not a part of the state itself. Does that make sense? Because, again, like, there's smaller ones up here, but there's a bunch of them up north. And this would be the resettlements and that kind of stuff. But like the Navajo and Hopi areas and the Ute Indian areas that are around this area. Whoops, sorry, it's not on the, beg your pardon, down here. This is a huge chunk of ground. Fort Apache and the Apaches, and the Taos, the Picaras, and the Paiute, all these. I feel like when you show a map of these states, you should just leave a hole where they are, because that's not. These little dots right here, this ain't California. All the rest of it's California. Look like Swiss cheese, but that's true, right? Like, when's the last time you saw this chunk cut out of a map when you saw a map of New Mexico? Does that make sense? Or Arizona, for that matter. Or like Nevada. with the Shoshone and the Walker River Paiute right here. Like I just like even especially when we do like election maps, just leave a space there that's white that says this used to be, this is not American land. Right? It isn't. That's just me. Like, I think that would make sense. I would present, like, when I run for president, what I will do is present a map of the United States that cuts out sovereign land because it's sovereign land, in the same way that we don't include chunks of Canada as part of our map, because it ain't. So people can get an idea of the size and the scope of the land that we actually govern and that we're responsible for, and then the areas that we have, sovereign treaties with. I mean, for fuck's sake, look at South Dakota. One of the reasons why South Dakota's, charting as well as it is, as far as crime and other stuff like that, is because they don't, look how much Sioux and Crow and Creek land is all throughout here that they don't register. Any of the crime that happens on those reses doesn't get added to the statistics around there. So all the statistics we've been looking at about education spending, about murder rates, about shootings, all that kind of stuff. Yes, natives can vote, though. I agree. But they're still sovereign in terms of the territorial treaties that we have. They should be separate. Like, and within those, they can, I would argue, shouldn't they have electors as sovereign land? If the natives themselves can vote, why are the natives part of the state that they're surrounded by? Because they're sovereign land no matter where they be. If this was located in the middle of fucking Illinois, what's the difference? The Republicans would go berserk. Uh-oh, Nevitz Forever is on to me. I mean, how about we propose that? That's not a bad idea. Yeah, and we should have ambassadors, right? They are North Americans, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have the same laws as the Americans and stuff. I'm just saying it's treaty land. Or, yeah, they're dual citizens technically, right? And we have special circumstances around that as well. I just would like to see a map where it singles this out, that you see this. Texas is bullshitting, by the way, because there's a lot more land around this idea. They just don't, I don't know why they don't put it on this map this way. They have chunks of land like this, but it's also a big empty space, so they just kind of write it off. Yeah. What do you think of, where is it? About ground news? I do my own ground news because I look back and forth. I don't need a secondary source. I see the ads all over the place, but I don't need it. I'd rather hunt my own shit down and compare the knowledge myself from the source as opposed to just the news stories. And I don't care what some other site's opinion is. Also, real quick for our... there's this one thing. Dun-dun-dun-dun. This is for the folks that brought up the Trail of Tears thing. Just let it soak in. Contrary to popular historical narrative, the Union's effort to rein in the Confederacy and end the secessionist military rebellion known as the Civil War was incomplete upon the 1985 surrender of Robert E. Lee. While ending the conflict in Virginia, the legendary courthouse meeting with Lee and Union General Ulysses S. Grant prompted a series of subsequent surrenders in numerous southern states and western territories over the following months. Watty, a staunch Confederate whose loyalty and battlefield exploits had earned him the rank of Brigadier General, was of course too complex for our sanitized, more linear national narrative. He was a Native American, a Georgia-born Cherokee who commanded Southern troops in the Indian Territory consisting of battalions of Creek, Seminole, Cherokee, and Osage natives. He was one of many natives who left their southern lands behind 3 decades prior and entered the Oklahoma Territory by way of the Trail of Tears, a series of forced relocations enacted by government authorities. And like a number of his native brethren, Wati was a wealthy planter and landowner who was accompanied on the Western Trail to the Oklahoma Territory by a sizable number of enslaved Africans he owned. You're aware of this, correct? Just letting you know. This is not... They were allowed during the Trail of Tears to bring their black slaves with them. And a good portion of the deaths that occurred on the Trail of Tears were of African slaves who were carrying the goods and were expected to carry the children until they collapsed so that the children didn't have to go as far and that kind of stuff. True Halberts, who sold them? They were traded in amongst the tribe. They were purchased. I mean, is the only person on the hook for the sale of a human being the person who sold them or the person who bought them? I would argue both. We couldn't ignore the fact that the 5 civilized tribes were actually slave states legally where they did practice slavery. It lasted a few more years after the war, after it was illegal for white-stone slaves in the United States. It continued to be legal for natives to have them. But can they vote? No. Absolutely not. Some of them were captured, yes. But the African slaves some of those were captured from the people, like they would kill the farmers or the people in a town, and then they would take the black slaves for themselves in some cases. Yeah. Let's see. Because they moved in the 1830s, but after the... so the Cherokee Constitution... See if I get a copy of it. In where is this? An article. Where's the thing of it? Yeah, here it is. Shall remain the common ground of the native, but the improvements thereon. Humility, God, to implore His direction, acknowledge and do ordain, especially the Constitution of government of the Cherokee Nation, the lands. Here it is. Hold on. Let me bring this up. I gotta squeeze this up and try to find it. Okay, hold on. I'm trying to find the phrase itself. Shrinking this down. Hold on. I'll bring this in here. Laws. This is the Cherokee Constitution from 1827. No person shall be eligible to a seat in the General Council but a free male citizen. Yeah, okay. No person shall be eligible to a seat in the General Council but a free Cherokee male citizen who shall have attained the age of 25 years, the descendants of Cherokee men by all free women except the African race, whose parents may have been living together as man and wife according to the customs and laws of this nation, shall be entitled to all the rights and privileges of this nation, as well as by the posterity of Cherokee women by all free men. No person who is of Negro or mulatto parentage, either by the father or mother's side, shall be eligible to hold any office of profit, honor, or trust under this government. This is the Cherokee. It's the 1827 Cherokee Constitution, which states that you can be a leader as long as you're a male Cherokee citizen, unless one of your parents was black. You could be one of your parents could be white. One of your parents could be Spanish, I guess, which is white also, but whatever. They could be, I don't know, fucking Vikings, I guess, depending on who came through here. But if they're black, you can't sit on the council. If you're mulatto or you're half black, you can't. According to the Cherokee Constitution that they wrote in 1827. Project 1825, that's exactly right. So, Does and again does also no atheists, by the way, no person who denies the being of God or a future state of rewards and punishment shall hold any office in the civil department of this nation. So no atheists at all. Cherokees will not accept them. So let's see. They did take the same rules of legal precedence. Applied twice in jeopardy of life or limb. Shall be taken and applied to kind of. They had a trial by jury. Religion, morality, and knowledge being necessary to good government, the preservation of liberty, and the happiness of mankind, schools and the means of education shall forever be encouraged by this nation, unless they're black people. But yeah. But do we believe in bots? No, we do not. White men wrote that? No, they did not. Let's see. Yeah, there were black codes to keep free black populace in place, given that there were free black population living among Cherokees, Choctaws, Cree, and other groups. Yeah. By 1860, there were 4,000 enslaved Africans living in the Cherokee Nation alone. Upon the Civil War in 1861, Waddy joined the Confederacy. Given his common interest in the wealthy slaveholders of the South, his view of the federal government as the Cherokees' primary displacer and enemy, he was pivotal in establishing the first Cherokee regiment of the Confederate Army known as the Cherokee Mounted Rifles, who fought on behalf of the South. Yeah, give a thumbs up, like the show, because this is very weird. I don't know, yeah, we don't all agree with you, Hal. That's okay. I have never asked that everyone agree with me. Also, facts shouldn't require any agreement either. They either are or they aren't. You can disagree with the facts or not believe them, but I would humbly request you go study them for yourself in any format that you see fit. That would be okay. And then if you come back to me with something that utterly refutes what I have said, then I'm all ears. Yeah, I can disagree agreeably. This is true. Oh, thanks, Ellen. I appreciate it. Thanks, Ellen. Feel so bad about all the Indians we massacred. Well, not all of them. Some of the other tribes were quite happy that we finally got rid of the people that were causing them a bunch of trouble at the time, and a ton of them integrated into Western society, as it were. What are you saying? Everything we did to the Cherokee Nation was because they were slave owners too? No, not at all. But I'm saying to you, were they that different from the South that they fought on behalf of as a society? If Custer had it coming and General Lee had it coming and the South had it coming for defending slavery, are Native Americans not human in their decisions as a tribe and as people? Honestly, do they get, and again, this goes to that whole point of like, if a tribe had come across the Great Lakes, like the Menominee comes over and they attack the Winnebago, and they come over from across one of the Great Lakes. Let's see if I can put it here. There you go. The Iroquois come over and they attack the Chippewa, and they've come across via the water and through Canadian land, and they come over here and they attack the Chippewa, which they did. What's the difference between them attacking them because they crossed other land and lake water versus salt water over a great distance? What's the difference? Morally, what's the difference? If you canoe from here to here and you find people on this land, you're like, I would like this land, you kill them and you take that land, are you somehow morally less responsible because this land was attached to this land or than you are if you crossed salt water? Is there a difference? Is it okay because you share pigment? And is that why, if it is that why we don't give a shit about Sudan today? Because we perceive them to be the same color. And in the case of Israel-Palestine, for example, we perceive Israelis to be white for some reason and Palestinians to be of color. It's a serious question. So is this equal behavior? Who has the land now? I would argue that people of all nations have this land. There are Chinese people and Greek people and Muslims and Christians. And I mean, America's the most pluralistic land on the planet. Right? It's not one group of people. It's not a white country. Right? Even if it's majority, it's still not that. And show me another country, arguably besides Israel, I guess I would count it in there, that has reservations after the fact. After you won a war against a people who said, you know what, you can keep this part and we'll live around you. For real. I'm not justifying this, and I'm not, the two wrongs don't make a right, Trucker John, is not my point. My point is that humans are humans. And humans have been being human for a very long time. And there is a tendency in some cases to infantilize or de-anthropomorphize large groups of people because historically, your Mohawk Nation, we weren't the sweetest bunch either. Hey, Karen, you want to tell anybody where the word Mohawk comes from? That's a good one. Also, think about Tecumseh. Okay, Tecumseh was a great Indian warrior who fought on behalf of, quote, his people, which did not include like half of the native tribes. He wanted to take them over, and he was promised that he would control these lands by King George. And so he aligned himself with the British in the War of 1812 because he believed that monarchy was much closer to a chieftain-like government, and democracy was not the way to go. And he had either, believed it or was convinced of it or shared in it or both. But he got his ass kicked because he sided with England in trying to basically use this territory right up here to encircle, basically fight down through this area and encircle the expanding colonies as they pushed west. And his arms and his horses and everything were reinforced by the English. Right? Now, is he innocent because he was here first? Or is he innocent because that was just his system, and he believed that chieftains and monarchs were better than everybody having a say, and that's why he felt he was superior enough to wipe out other tribes in the area, because it wasn't just going to be the whites he killed who were pushing back on this. He wanted the rest of this land from the rest of these tribes. Stop with the big words. Sorry. You're thinking of Quanah Parker? I'm sorry, I just saw that go by. You're thinking of Quanah Parker, the appointed leader of the Comanche? Or who? 10 Bears? 10 Bears, probably 10 Bears. Or like, let's see, I want to show you something. I keep looking for this. Fuck me. I need a, yeah, thanks. Yes, I do need a thesaurus in my head. But I like speaking, in a colloquial tongue. You're not even sure French is a language. Simmer down. Oops. Let's see. So Geronimo, if many of you know, got his name because when he was killing people, apparently the Spanish were yelling for Saint Jerome. And let's see. And so everybody thought they were calling out his name, like a tribal name, like he was given a name. They thought he was given the name Geronimo by the Spanish as like, this is the man who's killing us, because they would yell out for Saint Jerome. Yeah, where is it? Yeah, LA Times. Yeah, Geronimo was an Apache, but he was like, okay, against I find. I'm gonna try the. Yeah, I'm trying to find the quote on him. I was really racist. Saying of teas. Journal fled to the night. 700 men. Women, children, to give up the freedom. Blah blah blah. Yeah, he surrendered in 1886, and when they asked him, for the treasure to punish no other Indians been, all of them have changed, only served 30 years in prison for war. According to those closest to him, Geronimo was, for the rest of his life, bitterly regretted having surrendered. He wished instead he had stayed in Sierra Madre with his warriors, fighting it out to the last man, because they asked him, what, if you were alive, yeah, he died of old age too, that's right. They asked him, if you were free, what would you do? And if we freed you today, what would you do? And he was like, I would kill Mexicans until the day I died. Like that was like his big quote. I keep like, let's see, 80 reservation. One 300 federal troop marched in, mostly Apache. Where's one? They had to get drawn on after. He's in Arizona when he gave up. Yeah. He goes, once I moved like the wind, now I surrender to you, and that is all. And then he escaped again. But yeah, that was his big phrase. They were like, if we let you go today, what would you do? He said, I will kill Mexicans until the day I die. And you know, a brutal dude, you know, and a warrior for his family. His family was wiped out by, while he was, I want to say, on a hunting party or a raiding party. And when he came back, his whole family had been killed, and so he was like, "That's it," and so he just started killing Mexicans. And they used to call. See if I can find this. Yeah. There you go. This is the Comanche. Let's see. So there's an article written in the Daily Mail, so take it for what it's worth. But it's, you know, it's kind of on the money, because they were writing this thing about how Johnny Depp played a Comanche, a lone Comanche as Tano, right? And wears the crow on his head. So they wrote this article about, like, who the fuck does this guy think he is, kind of article. The 16-year-old girl's once beautiful face was grotesque. She'd been disfigured beyond all recognition in the 18 months she'd been held captive by the Comanche. Now she was being offered back to the Texan authorities by Indian chiefs as part of a peace negotiation. To gasp of horror from the watching crowds, the Indians presented her at the council house in the ranching town of San Antonio in 1840, the year Queen Victoria named Prince Albert. Her head, arms, and face were full of bruises and sores, and her nose was actually burnt off to the bone. They tortured her. They sliced her face off. Both nostrils were wide open and denuded of flesh. Once handed over, Matilda Lockhart broke down as she described the horrors she'd endured, the rape, the relentless sexual humiliation, the way the Comanche women had tortured her with fire. It wasn't just her nose. Her thin body was hideously scarred all over with burns. When she mentioned she thought there were 15 other white captives at the Indians' camp, all of them being subject to the similar fate, the Texas lawmakers and officials said they were detaining the Comanche chiefs while they rescued the others. It was a decision that detailed one of the most brutal slaughters in the history of the Wild West and showed just how bloodthirsty the Comanche could be in revenge. The Comanche were from the line of the Shoshone, and the Shoshone were called rattlesnake people by other tribes. Empire of the Summer Moon author wrote about the rise and fall of the Comanche, says no tribe in the history of the Spanish, French, Mexican, Texan, and American occupations of the land had ever caused so much havoc and death. No one was even a close second. He refers to the demonic immorality of Comanche attacks on white settlers, the way in which torture killings, gang rapes were routine. The logic of Comanche raids was straightforward. All the men were killed. Any men who were captured alive were tortured. The captive women were gang raped. Babies were invariably killed. Not that you would know this from the new Lone Ranger movie, which is why they're making the point. But again, fucking whatever. I don't know why they centered in on this. Want to play in a more sympathetic light. The Comanche were never known to have sympathy, which is true. Yeah. Let's see. By the Comanche tribe's furious response knew no bounds. When the Texans suggested they swap the Comanche prisoners for their captives, the Indian tortured every one of the captives to death instead. One by one, the children and young women were pegged out naked beside the campfire. They were skinned, sliced, and horribly mutilated, and finally burned alive by vengeful women determined to wring the last shriek and convulsion from their agonized bodies. Matilda Lockhart's 6-year-old sister was among those unfortunates who died screaming under the High Plains moon. Not only were the Comanches specialists in torture, they were also ferocious and successful warriors known as the Lord of the Plains. They were imperialist and genocidal as the white settlers who eventually vanquished them. Because again, this didn't just happen to white settlers. They did this to everybody. The key to the Comanches' success was that they adapted to the horse more skillfully than the Apache. There were no horses at all in the Americas. Okay, this is all history. We know this. And again, the Comanche were a small, relatively primitive tribe roaming the area that is now Wyoming, Montana, until around 1700 when they migrated southward. First Indians to take up the horse, they had aptitude for this, akin to Genghis Khan's Mongols, and they spread, okay. They terrorized Mexico, brought around the expansion of the Spanish colonization of America to a halt. They stole horses to ride, cattle to sell, blah, blah, blah. Settlers in Texas were terrified of them. The historian T.F. Fehrenbach, Dr. Havar. I'm going long. I don't care. This is fascinating to me. History of a People tells a raid on an early settler family called the Parkers, who with other families had set up a stockade known as Fort Parker. In 1836, 100 mounted Comanche warriors appeared outside the fort walls, one of them waving a white flag to trick the Parkers. Benjamin Parker went outside of the gate to parley with them. The people inside the fort saw the riders suddenly surround him and drive their lances into him. Then with loud whoops, mounted warriors dashed for the gate. Silas Parker was cut down before he could bar the entry. Horsemen poured inside. The two Frosts, father and son, died in front of the women. Elder John Parker, his wife Granny, and others tried to flee. The warriors scattered and rode them down. John Parker was pinned to the ground, scalped, his genitals ripped off, and then he was killed. Granny Parker was stripped and fixed to the earth with a lance driven through her flesh. Several warriors raped her while she screamed. Silas Parker's wife Lucy fled through the gate with her 4 small children, but the Comanche took them near the river. They threw her and her 4 children over their horses to take them as captives. Yeah, they were rough. They just fucking... Everybody hated the Comanche. Comanche boys, including captives, were raised to be warriors and had to endure bloody rites of passage. Women often fought alongside the men. They would also stick needles in your penis and all kinds of stuff when they'd catch a man because they would blame them for any of the men that had died anywhere else. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting that Comanche, though hostile to all competing tribes and people they came across, had no sense of race. They would just, yeah, because they would take you in. They would, if they found a boy child, let's be clear. If it was a boy, they had no sense of race. You'd become a full-fledged member if they just kicked the shit out of you, and if you were finally like, fuck you, they're like, oh, you're in. Weaker captives were sold to Mexican traders as slaves, so they sold people that they captured as slaves, but more often they were slaughtered because they didn't want to have anybody have like somebody who hated them, who could tell what life was like and where they lived and all that kind of stuff. So they considered them spies. One of the great chiefs, Quanah, was the son of a white captive, Cynthia Ann Parker. His father was killed in a raid by Texas Rangers, resulted in her being rescued from the tribe. She never adjusted to life back in civilization and starved herself to death. Yeah. Yeah. And again, these are human beings. And just like just like the Germans pulled shit and the Russians pulled shit and the fucking, the Armenians and the Azerbaijanis, fought, and fucking the Houthis versus the Yemenis and that kind of stuff. Human beings are equal in their capacity for beauty and depravity. And the quicker we realize that, the more, I think, compassionate we'll be with each other and with how far we have come from that being the norm. Because I don't know about you, but I have no interest in anyone being tortured to death in my name for anything. Right? And that requires that people, let's say like the Russians, not be in charge of a bunch of things because they still like that shit. And we all have the capacity to be awful. So it helps to remember that sometimes and not go, there were some people that were just perfect and we ain't it. You know what I mean? And this was in the 1800s? No, this was forever, up until the 1860s, 1870s. All this stuff went on and went on and went on and went on. Oh, Hal, you have an interesting discussion with Patty Vasquez. You'd have an interesting discussion with Patty Vasquez as guest host? Why, is he one of these people who thinks that Native Americans were basically antelope who ate grass and never shit and traded with each other like under a rainbow or some 70s fucking velvet painting, and so that they weren't basically human? They didn't have the capacity for greed and complacency and laziness and anger and vengeance and that kind of thing, that they were either just like peacefully sitting in a field as a deer until they turned into a lion, and then if you just left them alone, they like turned back into an antelope again. Do you know how embarrassingly dehumanizing that is? Now, the Romans made crucifixion an art form? No, the religion took the crucifix and made an art out of it. Made it a symbol. It is reductive. Yeah, the myth of the noble Indian damages Native Americans as much as anybody else. I paint with too broad a brush. I'm literally trying to add texture in a situation where the brush has been singularly broad. Groove Dragon. Or are you just arguing that that there are racially groups of good humans and racially groups of bad humans, and that if we just got rid of the bad colored ones, we'd be okay? Is that, because that's a fucking scary notion. Because yikes. And again, one of the things, and this would, it behooves you, I believe, Hal Ross, happy little trees, that's right. There are good people in every group. I kind of agree. Every group? You mean every race? Are there only a few, Groove Dragon? Because I'm honestly, I'm trying to work with you, brother. I'm trying to work with you in this one. Because I mean, which of the Nazis were good? I'm sure there were some trying to mitigate the damage and thought it all went way too far and were trying to claw it back some, but I wouldn't necessarily constitute those folks as good. Right? And I also wouldn't be as reductive to say is that there are some good people in every race and the rest of them gotta go. Eesh. Right? Honestly, I'm trying to grasp what you're laying down. I really am. But I don't think I'm painting with too broad a brush. What I'm trying to do is alleviate areas where we have painted with too broad a brush and it has created false equivalences. There's a great Lenny Bruce bit about Jackie Kennedy hauling ass. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's and I doubt I probably could play it and not get a copyright strike, but I think it's important that he makes this case that Jackie Kennedy was not the good woman who stayed. She wasn't trying to get help. She was trying to get out of there because she heard somebody say, "Get out of there," when Jack was shot, and she was crawling across the trunk of the car to get out. And there was this story in Life magazine and other things that was saying she was trying to get help, and he was like, "That's ridiculous. She should try to I wouldn't want my wife to, in that situation, stick around when I'm clearly dead. She should get the hell out of there and live. And I wouldn't want my daughter in that situation to feel bad if she was ever in a situation and she fled a shooting or something like that she would feel like shit because Jackie Onassis stayed, and she should be like the good woman who'd stay because people don't stay." That's his argument in the whole thing, is that yet you're putting his daughter on the hook for a myth, for a behavior that is alleged, that paints this picture of Jackie Kennedy as being greater than she was in this moment. And now his daughter's on the hook for that she'll feel like shit. She'll feel low if she doesn't stick around in a situation like that. And so equalizing the conversation about this and humanizing the circumstance, then you can see true bravery when it happens. Right? Yeah, no shade, that would be terrifying. Exactly. You were speaking about some of the tribes of Native Americans as a group, calling them killers and torturers like even the women, and you paint all tribes that brush. I by no means did. I literally made the case that they were this way with other tribes who didn't. I didn't say those folks had it coming. I think I'm fairly certain I was very specific about that they weren't just this way towards white people, the Comanches in particular, that Tecumseh wanted the land of the other tribes, that those groups, by and large, some of them ended up with reservations, some of them did not, because they'd already been wiped out by another tribe. I don't think, for real, chat room, did I not make that clear? Because I thought I was. I thought I was being clear about that. And that I was also explaining that there were tribes that did that in Europe, tribes that did that in the Middle East, tribes that did that in Asia, and that were, equal in their cruelty and common amongst all groups. Some of it is ongoing today. Some of it has ended in other parts of the world today, and we should seek, I would think, over time especially, to end it everywhere if we have the means and the wherewithal and the idea around that. And I was specifically making the point that in the same case, especially with native tribes, the ones that were around to make treaties with the settlers that were coming through and with the U.S. government were the ones that had won the Indian Wars for decades beforehand. So they had wiped out everybody. They were the militaristic leaders that beat all the other tribes either into submission or out of existence, driven them off that land, claimed the land for themselves, and then they strategically had an army or a group of people or enough warriors where they could negotiate a peace settlement and get themselves some land, whereas the other ones had been destroyed from both ends, right? Some were living in harmony with nature and eating simply. Yeah, but you could say the same thing of Vikings and Norwegians until they came in contact with other people. I would like to know who. colonizers are the settlers. And again, well, okay, what's the difference? Also, again, that goes to my point. If I cross a lake, am I a colonizer? If one tribe crosses a lake to take the land from another tribe, are they colonizers? And if we made a deal with them, is that just colonizers making a deal because they beat out some other colonizers? What's the standard? Nuance bonus. Thank you, JD Christie. I'm going to need it tonight because this is an important conversation. This live stream, the subject matter is upsetting me. I'm sorry, Yvonne. It shouldn't be. It should be okay. It should be that humanity is capable of all. Every human has the capacity for greatness and evil inside themselves. And when you come face to face with that, you recognize that this is that ethics and morals are based on your decision to act on one of those things, not simply on an autopilot that you're on. Right? So, yeah. The Utes is what, oh, yeah, sorry, whoops. The conversation has kicked off. This has really turned into a big conversation. Like, I can always tell when the chat starts to go, then, you know. Nobody was born with the want or need to make other people's lives shit. They developed it over time. I mean, it depends on your concept of self-interest. How desperate will people act if they haven't been cultured to act better? If they haven't been civilized to act better in a situation where their needs outwant the value of someone else. There are trolls on Randy Rhoads' show saying negative things about you. No, that's fine. Why won't they come over here? I'm just, you know what? I'm just proud that there are trolls coming after me. I mean, honestly, I take it as a point of pride. Conversation you had about not being able to say anything bad at all about trans people. Yeah, or the fact that are we even talking about trans people or not? Are trans people saddled with guilt in a circumstance that has nothing to do with them? Because, like I said, is a autogynephiliac a trans person? I don't think so. Is somebody who fetishizes the idea of being a woman sexually and uses that as and is largely in that case heterosexual, and uses it as a way to victimize women, is that person trans? No. Should trans people be on the hook for that person's existence? No. It has nothing to do with them. It's it's like when people attach pedophilia to being gay. When first of all, they're pedophiles across the sexual, across the spectrum, right? And no group is more attached to it. But the right will oftentimes make that about that pedophilia is almost a uniquely gay thing or something, right? Why should gay people be on the hook for something that is more prevalent from straight people just by number, much less per capita? They shouldn't. And so it shouldn't even be a conversation, because the existence of pedophiles, the existence of that kind of behavior has nothing to do with healthy sexuality at all. They are totally disjoined. But we line them up somehow because they both involve genitals. But I would argue all non-consensual sex goes into a basket of its own and has nothing to do with consensual sex. It is completely opposite. It's not even apples and oranges in this system because they're not in the same family. But it's I think it's cruel to make them carry that burden. And a lot of times when people talk about Native Americans or what have you, or they talk about them in a way that it's not that, it's almost like they don't have the capacity to be violent, and therefore they're basically a deer. They're a bird. They're not really a person. Human beings have all these different elements to them, but somehow they're denied that. It doesn't exist. And that's dehumanizing, because you're much stronger if you have the capacity for a certain behavior and you don't act on it than if you didn't have it at all. Right? Somebody who doesn't have a car and can't drive and doesn't know how to operate the pedals doesn't get points for not running people down. Right? They don't get, well, you say what you will, but he's never got in a car and run somebody over. Like, well, because he can't. Apples and bicycle chains. It is. It's very, very different. I'm a prospector looking for retention. Yeah. Look. Don't everybody jump on Groove Dragon either, because it seemed to me that you painted all Native Americans as being bad as the colonizers. Looking at what Cortez did in Mexico, he introduced an entirely different kind of warfare. Yes, but people don't have to take it up, and the capacity for doing so gave them dominance over other tribes. The same thing is true. Who introduced it to him? Like, people are people. It's not like they, Jesus Christ, look at the British. The British were wiped out by the Kentucky militia and the other folks because they fought in a line and stood in formation, and the rest of them didn't. That warfare worked at one point. So were they wrong for taking it on, or were the settlers not right for not reciprocating and standing in line too? Again, this is a process of dehumanization that I have no interest in. I would like to believe that all humans, regardless of their race or their religion or their creed, have the capacity to be complete human beings. And when they don't act on those things, they get credit for it. When they do act on those kind of things, they get vilified for it because they're human beings. And nobody gets a pass just because of geography. Especially that they wouldn't have given themselves. Well, we learned to fight like that from the Native Americans. There you go, Diane. That's a good part of it, right? The Kentucky militia learned that from the local tribes, because that's how they, they were getting killed themselves. Vicky, what is Hal talking about? That's a really good question. We're having a greater conversation that spilled over from the statistical belief that, America bad, and how it measures up, and how, statistics can belie a greater truth underneath it. And then a sense of history comes from these kind of blanket concepts that we've all bought into. And I think some of those beliefs dehumanize people. They take away the capacity for all the aspects of humanity that everyone has available to them. I mean, hold on. I'll show you something. I've showed you guys this before, but this symbol that I have right here, that's on my little sign right here, I drew this when I was in high school to explain to my my acting teacher why I felt the need to do music and stand up and write and direct and all the other stuff, why all of my interests were important, and why I couldn't just focus on being an actor and nothing but an actor. And I said I couldn't, because all of these interests have value, and they're all interconnected. And it is the tension between these things that makes me a person. And it is the good impulses that you have and the bad impulses that you have, and the distractions that you have that have no value, and the hobbies that you have that help you grow as a person, that all pull apart. And you're not any of those things. You're the tension between all of them. This is you. This is you in the center of this. And you don't exist without all of it. The impulses you don't act on are as important as the ones you do. That's who you are. You're not just the parts of you that you can commodify or the parts of you that you keep hidden. You are the tension between all those things. Does that make sense? I hope so, because it's how I live my life. And that's why I drew this and why I carry it around and why I wear it and why I have it. And Rob Glenn made this for me. He had this machined in his factory for me. And I believe this of everybody. This is also not just a guiding point of who I am. I believe it in everybody. I believe who you are is not all your good traits and none of your bad traits, any more than it's all of your bad traits and none of your good traits. I think it's the tension between the two. Who you balance yourself to be in this life. That's who you are. Vincent says, I try to overcome the darker parts. Exactly. And that's not just not doing those things. It's trying to do the good thing in that moment when you're faced with a decision in life. It's your weakness and your strength. Your entire existence is the tension between those things. That's who you actually are. Who you want to be may be a greater portion of that. And even when you do move in that direction, you move up or down with these arrows. You go up in your moral greatness. You go below what you believe your standard should be. The whole thing moves with you. And it's the tension between those things that moves you in that direction that makes you who you are as a person. That's who we know. That's who your friends know. That's who life is. Whether that's who you're trying to present or not, that's who's really there. Who you really are in this world is the tension between all of those things. And it's your struggle with your worth and your fear and your baser self and your higher self. And the part of you that wants to eat better and exercise, and the part of you that indulges, and the part of you that has hurt someone and apologized and hurt someone and hasn't. You are the wrong and the apology and the tension between the two. Paper or plastic. That's right. You're the wind beneath your wings. That's right. Yeah. Damn, when I was in high school, I was just about, where's the kegger? Well, so were a lot of people in my high school in Kentucky, which is why I left and moved to Chicago to live with my dad. Because truth be told, I probably would have rather lived with my mom. But I had to get out of there, and I needed a bigger world. So, it's a crucial aspect of what I believe, and I try to show that here. And I hope it gets across, right? And Groove Dragon, I appreciate you in some ways starting off this conversation, right? But I also want you to know that you are hearing what you need to hear or want to hear, not what is being said. And I'm sure I have a huge ego, but not a big enough one to assume that this is the only place it happens. And so all I could ever ask of someone is to consider that. Thanks, Trigger John. I'll make sure I put the symbol on my campaign stuff. Nothing says beer free like Chicago. Well, again, in Kentucky, it's hard liquor, and shine. So, my argument is that whether you like it or not, whether you know it or not, whether you're aware of it or admit it or not, your actual identity as a person is the bridge between the binary aspects of yourself. Am I okay? No, I'm better than that, Triva. I'm really good. I'm really good. Because this stuff matters. This really does matter. Is my necklace a one-off? No, I have a few of them. I sometimes give them to patrons that I see, Patreon supporters that I see at shows in person, because I only hand them off personally. So hopefully, if I see you, come up to me and ask, because I usually have one of them in my bag just in case. But whatever story we tell the world, the story we're actually living is that balance. Hal, what if you think you don't belong here? There has never been a statement of belonging more than that feeling. That's how you know you belong here. Because this place is almost defined by the search for belonging. Yvonne, you live in the UK. Ah, I see. Well, I'm sorry, I can't help you then. Everybody else, this applies to you, but it does not apply to Yvonne. She lives in the UK. So, sorry. Yeah, you're right. Good point. Touche. Some people are too far gone. And yeah. What author has influenced you more than any other person? Well, the Bible. No. What author? Besides Douglas Adams? I mean, obviously there's been a fair number of screenwriters, but Fritjof Capra's book, The Tao of Physics, had a big impact on me. I am often inspired by books that I ultimately hate. I will often, some of the most inspiring books I've ever read are books where I'm like, fuck you. Right? It's like nothing makes me write jokes better than watching bad stand-up. Philip K. Dick, yeah, I can see part of that. Yeah. Certainly. Asimov, Heinlein, Roddenberry. Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. It's a good book, Carl. That's a good one. The one about like how to think like a spy, I think it is, right? That's definitely got value. I mean, Marcus Aurelius, obviously, Meditations is a great book to read. Here, I'll show you one of the most annoying books that bugs people that I've read. This guy right here. Oof, good Lord. This is my good copy of it. This is Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike. When I started reading this book, I started underlining stuff in it. This is an old copy that I didn't mess up or mark in, but I have this one on like a Kindle version. It's actually the Apple Books version of it, and I started highlighting so much that I was like, I should just turn the whole pages yellow. So, Morals and Dogma is great. This is where that line, everyone's entitled to their own unique mistake, comes from. So, what I think of Melania, I have no plans on reading that. I don't need self-absorbed, don't forget to walk your dogma. I try not to. Curb your dogma. Excellent. Well, I've gone very long tonight. in our fanciful conversation. In some ways, in honor of David Lynch, yes. C.S. Lewis Shakespeare. Not to be confused with Captain Christopher Pike. Absolutely. Are you you're a Freemason? Yes, I am. Yeah. Here's my Masonic Bible. You want to see that? There you go. Yeah, I am a Freemason. And a proud one, too. And everything you keep hearing from Alex Jones and people like that, they're full of shit. And what they're trying to do is undermine democracy and free association and all the good parts of the Enlightenment in a way to reestablish authoritarianism, because that's antithetical to everything Freemasonry stands for. And so there you go. Right. Lord of the Flies, didn't like it. Thought it was bullshit and thought it was basically like a story to scare children into like, if we weren't here, you fucking kids would murder each other. Charlotte's Web is I cried watching the cartoon. Lord of the Rings, read all of those in high school. First book I ever read all the way through was The Hobbit when I was 6 years old. So my sister taught me to read. She has a learning disability. So using the same techniques to teach my sister how to read when she was 10, she taught me, she would come home and play school. And so from the time I was like 4 or 5 years old, we didn't have anything to do because we didn't have a television set. So my sister was my teacher, and she taught me how to read. And so I got a whole copy of the book when I was 6 going on 7, and I read it all the way through. And my parents got worried. It's like, who is this child? Catcher in the Rye, hated it. Don't hurt me. Yeah, I hated it too. Bullshit. Annoying, self-involved nonsense. Yeah. Grapes of Wrath nearly killed you. What did it do? Fall on you? Yeah, Holden Caulfield is just a prick. Yeah. It's nihilistic porn. It's nihilism porn. Yeah, rip Bob Uecker. Sweet guy. Electric Kool-Aid acid test, whoever said that, yes. Groove Dragon, I think you're selling an idea to all of us, because your name in caps and you're writing all in caps. I see a branding exercise happening here. I'm getting very strong bot vibes from you. Yeah, what else? Hold on. I should pick 2 other books just to show you before I go. Let's see. Where is it? This one. Let's see. No. This was cool. Hold on. This is super weird. This was in my grandfather's stuff. When my grandfather Seiler, my mom's dad, passed away, he left me a couple things. They were like, well, it was more like, you want any of this? And I was like, yes, I want anything that mattered, that he had, that you were like, he always had this, and we didn't get it. And so I have his sword from World War II, and I have his dress sword, and I have his gun, his rifle that he brought back with him, and Elbert Hubbard's scrapbook, which is this weird book of just like collections of writings that this guy Elbert Hubbard had put together. And it was a lot of philosophy and little stories and that kind of stuff. And in it, check this out. And I'm going to end on this because you guys, I've already been far too good to you folks all night. This is it. I would like to show you this, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on, I've got it. I don't want to lose my place because I use it as a bookmark because it came with it. Hold on. I'll use a new bookmark, this sticker that I have that says not to be operated by fuckwits. I'll hold that in there so I don't lose my place. And this is my grandfather and my grandmother all dressed up. That sword he's holding is his. Robert and Roberta. That's right. So that's my grandparents. That's my mom's parents. And then there's a Miami Beach, Florida leather leather bookmark in here that's further back than I've gotten, and then a picture of them all at the beach in their swimming costumes. But there's a bunch of stuff in this. I look like my grandfather? Thanks very much. That's very sweet of you. I agree. So there you go. I actually look more like my mom, and especially with my hair like this. Who's cavalry? Yes. I do come from good stock. They were in their 20s in that picture. I gotta go. You guys are weird. I love you. Just do me a favor. Treat every human you meet as a full human. Like a complete human, not a fucking robot. And don't look back on history as if everybody should know what a fucking Starbucks Grande is. I would look great in one of those swimming suits. All right, this has gone far too far. Hit that like, everybody. Let them know you're there. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow over Rob Glenn. And no afternoon show tomorrow because I'm flying. I'm flying to our Sexy Liberal show. I will also be on John Fugelsang's show in a little bit. So that's kind of why I'm hanging out. Okay, bye. By the way, I'm going to be on John Fugelsang's show tonight at 8:15 p.m. my time in just about a half hour. So if you feel like jumping in there, I don't think it'll be like this conversation, but it will be damn interesting.